Hello everyone, welcome back to the TJOmega channel for day 1543 of our daily content grind, and it is the big one of the month. It is the monthly Q&A, this time for everything I got asked during the month of November. So thank you everyone who left me a question. There's like 140 odd comments that we need to get through. This is going to take a while. Sit tight. So if you do want to have a question answered for next month, then you have to remember very simple rules. Number one, keep it short. It's got to be a quick yes or no answer so we can get through everyone as fast as possible. Two, it's got to be one question per person, again, so we can get through and give as many people a turn as we can. And three, there's general rules. Keep it keep everything PG. Don't ask me about Magnetar or Gundam. I have no answers for you anymore. And we added another one, which was you don't need me to validate your fan art or fan fiction ideas, because that gets people to like dropping enormous amounts of text for me to read. So like basically give me their entire story bio. I don't need the whole thing. I don't need it. You don't need me to say your idea is good or not. So simple yes or no questions, right? Okay. Rules are always at the top of the comment section when you go. Let's move on and get into this. I'm eager to do this because I'm coming off of the first episode of Toy-Sember this year, where one of my lights screwed up. I left a cough in the edit that I forgot happened, and then I gave it the worst typo I possibly could have in the title. So let's start a completely normal video. Being serious, I know you say you want less joke questions. I don't mind like joke questions per se, just like because I like the random stuff. I like the randomness. Do you have a favorite bot shot? I mean, it's a given, but the favorite one is the one that looks like Cybertron Optimus Prime. Like the fact that they did it at all is kind of crazy to me. And I would say this a lot, but I mean every time. Genuinely love seeing your videos every day. Love what you do and love you for doing it. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for that. Thoughts on Has Been Season 2 now that it's all over? For the most part, I do like the season. I like a lot of the character development. I wish Angel Dust had... I mean, I understand, like, the Angel Dust storyline is kind of a slow burn. It's going into three seasons now. And I get that, but it's my favorite character, so to end him off on a bummer note for the season, that's kind of a buzzkill. But overall, I did like it. I wish Baxter got a little bit more time. It felt like he just kind of like showed up in episode 7, suddenly became super important, and we only got like cameo appearances prior to that. I could go on. I'm not gonna give like a full review here. Like I've got my grievances, but I still really enjoyed the season. Favorite song? Gravity's Too Easy. Hear My Hope, probably. Beyond that, I am a sucker for a big climactic song like that. What would you say is your favorite Tetrajet design? I mean, outside of the Cybertron version, okay, you got me. Quite fond of the TF1 and Bumblebee movie designs. So my issue with those is I really do not like that weird like undercannon that they have, because it looks like they can't even land. I don't like the look of that. It just sticks out too much, like to the point where I think it makes a 4th point on the Tetrajet, which defies the point of the Tetrajet. Honestly, I mean, it's bog standard, but if we're excluding the Cybertron version, which means we also exclude the War Within and Titanium version, then I have to go back to the G1. I like the flying pyramids. You know, they're sleek. They make sense in a space setting. And in a swarm, they would look very menacing. Do you think the new Bruticus will be the same height as Menasor or Superion, or a little bit taller like Devastator, since the legs will be Voyagers? The legs are only Voyagers because they have the additional engineering in order to be the ankle tilts of the design, as well as it seems like they're going to take up more of the leg than the previous Combiner teams had. So it's not that he's going to be taller because the legs are Voyagers. It's because they just have to have a little bit more budget to do what they need to do. Now, that said, paying $42 next year for what amounts to like a more complex deluxe is going to suck. To do it twice is going to suck worse. Hasbro's got to throw a little bit extra in those boxes to make that worth it. But no, he'll be the same height as Menosaurus Superion. Like, absolutely will be. Have you ever read the Mega Man Archie comics, or some of my only experience with the franchise? Thought they were great. So yes, I have read the Archie comics. I was really upset when that went on indefinite hiatus, because I really did like the stories they were putting together. Like, Archie managed to keep the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise going for a long time. So there's me hoping that, like, fingers crossed, we can get like 200 issues of a Mega Man comic and get some real fiction going. Unfortunately, did not happen. I liked what they were doing with it. I liked the character twists to it. And I really do like the Sonic and Mega Man crossover stuff. Like, seeing Sonic's entire cast redone as Wily style Robot Masters, that was fun. The fact that we got 2 Shadow Man out of it, that was funny to me. Hang on, like, my message is going off when I'm trying to do a long recording. Excuse me. Okay, we're clear. Sorry about that. But yeah, I did really like them. Just wish they lasted longer. Would you like it if Hasbro did a new Punch Counterpunch figure, and would you buy it if they did? So they did do the mold during Power of the Primes, and I really think that just does the job. Like, they could absolutely do a new one, and I really wouldn't mind them doing it in a more modern, like, high-end sports car look, just to give him a little bit more of a modern touch, you know, because he's kind of just a sedan. He's a kind of a basic car in his traditional vehicle mode. I'm not sure I would buy it again, though, because I really do think they nailed it the first time. I'm not sure I necessarily need another one, especially because anything newer would have tighter budget constraints and probably not turn out as good as the Power of the Primes version. So I like the one they did. So I probably would skip the new one. If or when Lego gets to Megatron, how are they going to execute him? Will he ever transform, or will he not even bother me since he's consistently war vehicles? Also, thanks for educating me on my hubcap blunder. There you go. So that is a really interesting question. I could probably do like a whole rundown of what Megatron could potentially be from a Lego kit. So for those unaware, Lego has a very strict rule against depicting war vehicles. You know, it's specifically like they are not going to depict a tank. And that really leaves you in a hard spot with Megatron. Obviously, he's not going to turn into a gun, but he's not going to turn into a tank either. But it has to turn into something that looks like G1 Megatron. So at that point, if you're Lego, I think your only option is going to be some kind of like heavy truck. And you're going to need a lot of modification to G1 Megatron's design in order to pull that off. I honestly think the better bet is to just kind of avoid doing Megatron in general. He would be exceptionally difficult to make any kind of realistic vehicle out of if those two options are taken out. And even to turn him into something like a tank usually takes a lot of engineering. Something that Lego's, like, it must be able to transform rule would not be able to handle. So I'm going to just say, for the sake of argument, they're probably going to skip Megatron. It'd be weird for them to do, but I don't see a way they're really going to convincingly do him. What G1 episode would you like to see Shattered Glass version of? My pick would be Masquerade. Masquerade would be a fun one to do Masquerade would be a really interesting one to do Shattered Glass version. So there's a few others that come to mind. Only Human would be funny. Can't remember that's the title. That's the title of the animated version. Can't remember the title of the English version, or the original G1. I'd rather. No, there's got to be a better answer. Got to be a better answer here. I mean, there's funny answers you could do, like, absolutely. Carnage and C minor would be funny because you turn the entire planet into like heavy metal. That would actually probably be really cool. you could do something along the lines of like the Nightbird episode. So they're actually they're actually building Nightbird as a way of defending against the Autobots. Oh, what else? What else would be fun? I feel like this could be a whole video. Hang on. This is where I pull up a notepad. Okay. But yeah, there's a few options I could pick. There's some really good. There'd be some that would be really fun to do in Shatterglass. Do you think the price increase would be better received if they knew for a fact that the quality or engineering of the figures will be improved as well? So obviously, yes, but you're not going to get that because they want a certain profit margin on the toys, which is the whole reason for the price increase in the first place. Essentially, charging like $42. Let's go to the deluxe. Charging $28 for something that used to be $25 is them compensating for the tariff and trying to get the same amount of profit margin that they used to get. Keep in mind, the prices have been increasing for a long time now, ever since Beast Wars. Actually, we can wind that all the way back to like Universe 2 and Animated. It's like where that started going from $9.99 for a deluxe to $12.99. But at some point, they stopped upping the engineering with the price increases and just kind of thinned out the engineering, which is unfortunate, but it's just true. It's more of a matter of like they're hitting a certain profit margin. If they were to increase the quality or engineering of the figures, it'd be even more expensive. I don't think it would go down better because I think you'd end up with like $30 deluxes. And that's about the time a lot of people would tap out. Me included, honestly. Like I'm already like very, very close to my limit as far as what I can spend on robots at this point. Since you're not a fan of Volcanicus, why not use Dino King for more fiction and toys? I wish they would. Like to have a counter to the Dinobots would be a really cool thing. Like that would be a lot of fun to have. So, the whole reason why you don't is just because the Dinobots themselves are just way too marketable. And they wouldn't want to eat their lunch by introducing another team of robotic dinosaurs, even if they are Decepticon based. Especially because so many of them share beast modes, So, yeah, I think they would want to avoid the brand confusion. They prefer the Dinobots because the Dinobots always sell better. And normally I use water for hydration, but at the moment, none of the water in the house is cold enough to drink. And I'm going to need a little bit of caffeine to get through this because this is going to run late. Opinions on the Drake Warden Ranger subclass. So you would think I would know about this because my D&D characters always have some kind of weird dragon connection. It's just like the happenstance of the storytelling. They just always do. And I played a very successful ranger in a full 1 to 20 campaign. But unfortunately, I will admit, I haven't looked into Drake Warden. So it was by the time Drake Warden came out, because I think that got added with the Dragon books, I had already been like knee deep into my Gloomstalker Ranger, and I had no real reason to go looking at other subclasses anymore. So unfortunately, I've not really delved into Drake Warden, so I don't really have an answer for this one, unfortunately. How would you feel about a 2D pixel art beat 'em up Transformer game a la the original TMNT games or Gravity Circuit? So a beat 'em up Transformer game would be fun if you could figure out good ways of using the vehicles in one of those. That's always the thing with a Transformer game is like, I want to transform because that's the whole Transformer thing. So how do you make that fit into a gameplay loop? You could just make it like special attacks. You could make it just like a way of traversing through certain spaces in the level. Maybe like if you're thinking like Battletoad beat 'em up, then your your turbo tunnel section would be like where the Transformers would be driving through. Not that that's the best of examples because everyone hated the turbo tunnel, but that would be the idea. I mean, I wouldn't mind any Transformer game, honestly, as long as it was well made. What's your favorite, least favorite AVGN episode? So this is another one. Like, I will be honest, I have not watched AVGN in so long. I'm hard pressed to remember a lot of them, if I'm going to be completely honest with you, which is weird considering like I originally patterned myself as like the AVGN of, Transformer toys. But honestly, like the stuff he's been doing over the last few years, I have not watched any of it. Like they're just accumulating in my watch later list. I feel like at this point, if I start watching the episodes from where I started to save them to now, it would just like fast forward the receding hairline, and it would be really weird to watch over the course of a few hours. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have an answer for you just because like I can't remember any of them. I could say like I could go easy mode and say Convoy no Nazo was a favorite. That's mostly because he did a game I had already reviewed first. So for us to hit on certain matching points was funny to me. What should the next move for weaponizers be? Should they take after Amalgamus Prime with a Diaclone R style look, have a minifig vehicles, things with Micronus, or should they try again like Rocky Armorizers? So I'm not sure where you go with your weaponizers at this point. I'm not even sure they have a place in Transformers at this point. They always just seem to end up being the shelf warmers of every line they were part of, a lot of those end up in just a lot of those toys just ended up in the clearance liquidation stores or on the clearance section at Target or Walmart. I'd honestly think it's time to just retire the idea. It worked for a few characters. For a few characters, it was important to get 6-gun cog. We needed to get those characters out for all the Titans. So in that, it played its part. But for the most part, I think the play pattern just kind of fell on deaf ears. And like honestly, I genuinely I don't know where to go next with it. Like if they want to do something like Weaponizer with future Pretenders and do something similar to Amalgamus, that might be the only thing that I think would be like approachable. As a compromise between the stability of frames and better team integration, how about the new combiner system inspired by Figueroa's IDW Menasor design? Leader splits into torso, thighs, feet, and hands, lower arms. The rest of the team fills out the gaps. So what you're doing is essentially just like cobbling in all of the separate kibble parts that were usually a traditional piece, like traditional things from other combiner designs, and you're just like saying that they would combine together into like Motor Master's trailer or something. That is not a compromise with stability of frames and better team integration. You're basically just kind of going back to the way it was before, because without the frame system, you aren't getting the stability. That's the whole idea, is that the framework is providing the stability in the hips, in the knees, in the elbows, in the shoulders, in the places where it's most important that they can't build into the combiners smoothly and still get a fully functioning transformer out of it. So what you're basically proposing is what we had before with some extra steps. And I'm not sure that's the right approach. I like the framework. Like, yes, it does take away the Scramble City aspect of it, but let's be honest, not a lot of us, I don't think a lot of collectors use the Scramble City play pattern in the first place. I would just rather it just be as stable as possible. And frankly, for that, like the framework is necessary. If it is different from what we have been getting lately from Transformers, would you love to see an isekai anime where the main character gets isekai'd into the world of Transformers as a Transformer? That would be really, really hazardous to attempt. Mostly because you'd ask a brand new character to be the main character of the franchise, and like your Optimus, Bumblebee, and all that would basically be side players. And I'm wondering what you gain out of that you wouldn't gain from just having a new cartoon or comic book that focuses on a brand new Transformer who has to learn everything from the ground up. Like, I don't see where the isekai part of that story necessarily enhances the story you would tell in the Transformer universe. That would be my only grievance with that. Like, even the cross universe stuff, you could literally just do with, like, I don't know, just just like a robot from another dimension just fell into the Transformer one. And it kind of works the same way as this basically, like, okay, I am describing an isekai now. Never mind. Never mind. Since we're all excited for Transformers Earthspark Season 4, the 2 1-hour specials that we're going to get, I thought I'd ask you a fun question. If Earthspark gets more after Season 4 specials, what would you rather see, or have a full final season of 26 or more episodes, or a full 1 or near 2 hour theatrical movie as a big finale? I mean, personally, I would absolutely want a full 26 episode season to wrap it up and tell like really good stories with the characters. I want them to go back to Starscream's like trauma survivor story. I want to go back to Tarantulas, who's been completely MIA. He's not even in the trailers for the 2 new specials. I'm kind of worried that the writing team that took over completely forgot he existed. Obviously, I would love to have as much Earthspark as possible, but we're getting what we're getting. And it's hard to say what I would want to see from those because we haven't gotten to see what we are going to be getting. So we'll figure that out. That's a question to ask. Like I did a video of like loose strings of Earthspark, and I'm kind of curious how many of those get tied up. We're going to revisit that video after these specials to actually see what we got, what we got or what we're missing. How come you haven't made an apology video for Retrax? He had a chance at getting into Rise of the Beast, but perhaps you're protesting and one of his bad toys what made the studio leave him out. I hope you're joking with this. I don't owe Retrax any apology. No. I will remind you, most Beast Wars Predacons had some kind of design that didn't make it into the movie. Waspinator didn't make it into the movie, but I don't think that had anything to do with the fact that it doesn't. Obviously, I don't think I've ever reviewed a Waspinator toy outside of Thrustinator. I don't think I have that kind of influence, my dude. No. Retrax gets no apology. Retrax gets no apology. Besides, I don't have a ukulele on hand for that. Is Hotshot worthy of leading Velocitron? Remember, Override is a terrible person in both Beast Wars Uprising and IDW. So that depends on the Velocitron you're talking about. Like on the original, maybe, because that Override is not. But that means like Override is not a bad person in the original. I don't know. It really depends on how you're writing Velocitron. Now, yeah, and granted, Override, terrible person, but I don't know if Hotshot, regardless of the depiction, I don't know a Hotshot who has the responsibility, the capability of leading an entire planet. So I would say no. Despite Override being a bad person in a few stories, I don't think Hotshot has what it takes to lead an entire planet. Or at least I haven't seen the Hotshot story that developed him enough to get there. I remember you saying before that each Transformer show takes its time to explore one of the 13 primes. What would you say is the focal prime for the Transformer shows that really don't have one? For simplicity, you can just answer G1, Beast Wars Animated. G1, I think, would definitely be Prima, because they would explore the origin of the Matrix of Leadership. Beast Wars would probably be Onyx Prime, since he's like the origin of Beast Transformers. That makes the most sense. Animated, I'm not sure. I'm really not sure who it would be for animated. Potentially Solus? Potentially Solus Prime. And we technically included her in the Machinima series, But we really didn't like focus her in as like the main prime of the story. That was Megatronus. I think I would go with her because there is a lot of like, because of how the Allspark and the key, Sari's key and the Allspark worked in that series. I think it would end up being Solus. Please, TJ, read all for context. Question: what size should Astro Train be? Context: should he be the normal size like in G1 or big like in Cyberverse because of the spaceship mode? Comment: because I was thinking of getting the DX9 sugar from my Generations collection. So, honestly, here's your trick with the Astro Train. The train should also be large, but not nearly as large as a space shuttle. Like, not even close. No matter what, you're going to have a size discrepancy. My personal preference would always be toward what his robot mode turned into. Like, I can stand it, however you want that to proportionally work out with the rest of your figures. I can get behind an Astro Train who's a little bit bigger and buffer than the rest of his teammates because he should be depicted a little bit larger for what he turns into compared to everybody else. If you think about it, he needs to be taller than he needs to be taller than like a Stunticon or whatever, who can turn, who could, cause I'm thinking like scale between cars and trucks and all that. So he should be bigger than any other point he's been depicted as, but this is where we have that fun, little characters who mass shift. So it'd be whatever collection you want it to fit into and how the robot mode scales. I like my Astro Train to be a little bit bigger, but not horribly bigger. That would go back into it depends on how you wrote it. Obviously Cyberverse, he only has the space shuttle mode as far as we know. So he should be that big. If Alphatron was a regular Cybertronian before becoming a prime, what would a previous form be called? Alpha Duon, or the upgraded current prime, what we call Alpha Quatron. We don't know what he would have been if he was actually given the Matrix and became a prime officially. Keep in mind, in the original G1 Transformers fiction, we only saw 2 carry the Matrix. We don't know if changing the name to something like that is a genuine tradition, or if it just happened to be those 2. We do know that, but here's the thing, we do know that his original name was A3. So prior to becoming a prime, he would be A3, and I think after being a prime, he would be Alpha Trion. So it's likely that he was B3 up until he became the bearer of the Matrix himself. While not officially bearing it, it may still have marked him as a temporary leader of the Autobots until Optimus Prime came online. That's kind of how I always viewed it. Let's see, has your love of Japanese media ever sparked a want to learn the Japanese language? More than once. I have had a book or two about how to do Japanese. I've had audio. I've had audio tutorial on it before. It's that's how I know sumimasen, ego ga wakarimasu ka, and I actually understand what each of those parts is. Really, the only thing I can remember from it offhand, though. I have Duolingo on the phone too that's set to Japanese. I never use that either. One of the million things I just do not have time for anymore. There's a lot of interests or hobbies I have that lately, between VTubing, YouTubing, toy shop, and all family responsibilities, I just do not have the time to follow that kind of interest. That takes so much study that I cannot work in right now. Who is the best or worst human sidekick or side character in Transformers? So, for the worst sidekick, my brain goes to, let's see, who didn't I like? I genuinely don't like Sam as a character, or Michaela, so that'd probably be up there. If I'm talking cartoons, I'm not annoyed by Daniel like a lot of people are. Spike is a little bit more bland. Honestly, if I'm thinking about this, like, I really like Miko. And I know a lot of the fandom hates Miko. I like Miko. I think a lot more of us would be like Miko in the face of actual Autobots being a thing and right in front of us than any of us care to admit, which is why people hate Miko in the first place. They see themselves in her and don't want to admit it. So I really like Miko. I really like Chip Chase. Like, I'm a big proponent of Chip Chase because he manages, like, his disability never becomes a thing. If anything, being on wheels means he's closer to the Autobots than any of the others. They just treat him like one of their own, one of their more trusted allies. You know, and he comes in handy more often than a lot of the human allies. Yes, I've always liked Chip. If you're gonna go with worst, Kicker. You know, if I'm taking the movie characters out, Kicker. He's just written to be whiny. Do you have a rivalry in Transformers that you'd like to see happen? Mine would be Bludgeon and Drift. Bludgeon and Drift would be good. Jeez, Bludgeon and Drift would be good. Who would be good as a rivalry? It's not something I really think of as far as, like, you know, I would really like to see this Transformer versus this Transformer because most of that we've gotten over the years. Yeah, that would be... that is one where I have to sit and think. I don't have an answer immediately, so that's one where I would genuinely have to just, like, sit and think about it. There's almost part of me that would see like a rivalry that could work. Would either be like we mentioned it before, punch counterpunch. Either between him and Double Dealer, they're both like sneaking around both sides without trying to get caught or trying to oust each other for being double agents. That would be a fun little story to tell. Or even like Nightbeat and punch counterpunch. Like, I feel like they make a great duo, but if counterpunch is the main form and punch is the cover, and he's actually a Decepticon agent, you could play a fun like cat and mouse between those two. I'll go with that for now. What if in the 1986 movie they'd use season 1 or 2 characters from the main cast, B equals Hot Rod, Ironhide equals Cup, Prowl equals Magnus, and kept Optimus alive while still establishing the Matrix? Heck, they could even make Magnus a mid-season upgrade that Optimus gets to finally beat Unicron. I know why this wasn't the case IRL, since the whole point of the movie is to promote new characters' toys, and it comes from someone who loves Roddy Magnus and the majority of the A6 cast. But do you think the movie would have gone down a little bit easier with fans and critics if they had kept the focus on the already established cast? It would go better with fans because they're seeing a lot of their favorites on the big screen being the main characters of the story. Critics, not even close. Not even close. Critics in 1986, they didn't care. They didn't care. Most critics, most film critics, really do not care about animation in the slightest. That's just the point of it. Most of your, like, Oscar award-winning animated features, they never watched. They will vote for the one that they had to take their grandkids to. That's it. That's like basically, and that's like they'll vote for just the only one that they were forced to see that year, regardless of how good the others are. If you see like over the years, like the movies that won best animated features, some of them are absolute crap. Some of them do not deserve it in the least compared to their competition. So yeah, it wouldn't have gone down better with critics, though I'm sure fans would have loved to have seen the movie focus solely on the familiar. Question with a comment. By the time you're reading this, I should be done with Schedule Conflicts Campaign 1 because of the enthusiasm of another commentator spurring me on. Edit. I was successful. Also, I found their comment. Hi, Mage. We asked the same question originally. So, what's your biggest didn't get to do that but wish I did with Tora? Oh, my wizard boy. Oh my god. There's a lot of things that I wish that I got to do. Because we left off like an entire plot thread of going to the Mage Academy, and I never went for that plot thread. Because we never were in that part of the world. You know, in fact, we were like forcefully pushed away from that part of the world, to the point where we only came back when it was time for the final boss. So we never really got to do that. Never really got to explore like figuring out his mother was alive and finding her and reconciling with his dad. Like there's a lot of story points that I wish we had gotten to do. Um, Drana's girlfriend Toot Sweet was like a magical uh like it was like she was like a magical seamstress, and one of the things that was available to us was being able to combine outfits into like a 5-in-1 costume. Like you could just magically change it from one design to another. Perfect for Tora, who was very fashion forward and loved being flashy. So that could have been, that could have been like variations of his outfit mixed in, and then you could just switch to like a cloak outfit for hiding. He could switch to his tuxedo dress combo from the ballroom. Just whatever he needed on a moment's notice. And that would have been really fun. That would have been so in character for him to have just a whole wardrobe at his will at any moment. So I really wish we had gotten back to Toot Sweet so I could have gotten that done. What inspiring line would you say to what inspiring line would you say to an Optimus Prime of your choice? What sentence can I say to movie Optimus Prime to convince him to stop being a psycho? The quote from the original G1 Optimus Prime I love is there's a thin line between being a hero and being a memory, which is a way of saying like calm down, you don't have to be gung-ho about this, which is exactly what movie Optimus Prime needs to learn. I would use a G1 Optimus line against the movie Optimus Prime. See, here's my question. Are combiners better sold individually or all at once? I say the latter because after failing to complete my core class Volcanicus, thanks to dumb distribution making Snarl impossible to find and expensive now, if I ever decide to get another combiner, I'm waiting for a box set release. So it really depends on what you're after. If you're after instant gratification, you need to buy them one by one. Hasbro said that from now on, they're going to be waiting like 2 years to do box sets of any of their combiners, so no one feels ripped off by going for them piecemeal. Honestly, I do feel like they are better served individually because not everyone is going to want all of them. I can tell you a lot of people who would want Motormaster solely because Motormaster himself looks and is a very cool toy on his own, but maybe they don't care about Dragstrip. Maybe they don't care about Dead End. In the case of the aerial bots, I could see a lot of kids picking up one or two and then just leaving it at that because they all look the same. Like they're going to buy like one, maybe two, and then call it. So you have to factor things like that in. I do think they are better sold individually, but I also think that down the line, box set variation would be good, whether that's like G2 colors or toy accurate colors, what have you. I think the current system works best for everyone's options. They just need to be more vocal and transparent about when they are going to release box sets of these combiners, if they plan on releasing box sets of these combiners someday. If a genie suddenly appeared and gave you a chance, gave you the option of owning Lucky Draw Galaxy Convoy or G2 Swoop complete with packaging, what would you choose? Well, the G2 Swoop never existed. So there's no way I could actually show that to people and anyone going, "Oh wow, you have the real thing, all right, yeah, the thing that never got made." It would probably be the Lucky Draw Galaxy Convoy, not only because I have a stronger connection to that one, honestly, than I do Swoop. It depends on the Lucky Draw we're talking about. Because I don't know, I can't remember offhand if he just had like a solid gold chrome Lucky Draw toy. If his only Lucky Draw, if the one you're talking about is that 1-of-1 custom green one, that one, without a doubt, that one. Like, I have no idea if that toy even exists because it went to a Japanese kid 20 years ago. So nobody knows where that toy is, if it's still intact, if it's still complete. No one knows. Good evening, or rather, good night. That's what I'm saying in my language. It is nighttime here, so good on you. So the last Q&A, you mentioned following Toonami. Do you have any opinion on Inuyasha Ranma 1/2? P.S. It's funny you mentioned Tenchi Muyo because the staff of Bubblegum Crisis Layer 1 to create that franchise, it's gonna be so that could be a reason to one day check it out. I don't know if you mean me checking out Bubblegum Crisis or you checking out Tenchi Muyo. I'm probably not going to go back for the latter, like, lack of time thing. But, yeah, go check out Tenchi. Like, if you like your harem animes, it's a really goofy one. It's fun. Ranma 1/2. I do like Ranma 1/2. I do think it drags the, like, romance side of it all, I do think it strings that along a little bit too far because it's very clear, like a quarter of the way through the series, that they're in love with each other. They're both just super stubborn to admit it, and it's super frustrating to watch it go on for so long. And for Rama not to just shut down all these other girls. So yeah, that one, meh. I do really like Inuyasha. That's one of those with maybe a little bit too many filler arcs, but I do really like Inuyasha. I followed that one a lot. Never got around to Yashahime. Of course, it's a sequel series. No one has good things to say about the sequel series compared to the original. But yeah, I have fond memories of the original Inuyasha. If they repaint the new Titan Armada tie wave into Energon tie waves, should the parts on him be made of clear plastic on the original, or be made clear plastic on the new one too? I don't think so, because you're dealing with toys that are far heavier with far more solid ratchet joints. I think translucent plastic, especially in the parts that that Tidal Wave used it in, would be extraordinarily risky. Extraordinarily risky. These AI answers are terrible. If the original figure didn't have clear plastic, I don't see why the original did. Shut up. They'd have to use a darker transparent plastic to keep it from... Actually, what is it? From looking cheap. Nope. Let's suppose that I would be repainting the Studio Series Constructicons into the Autobot Double Target Masters of 1988, plus whoever fits in the theme of my mind. Who can I paint Bone Crusher into? So that's always the fun one, isn't it? So I've thought of this before, where like you do have enough of these G1 combiner, you have enough of these like G1 Autobot characters going around to actually like turn it into a few of these. But Bone Crusher is always where I got stuck too, because there's really no good G1 equivalent, for this, for the Steam Shovel. I think you have to go either into Micromasters in order to find one. That might be like literally might be the only option there. Yeah, Bone Crusher is always the hard one in that. So unfortunately, Samuel, I've had the exact same thought as you. I've had the exact same hurdle. So unfortunately I do not have an answer for you in that regard. Like Bone Crusher just is a little bit more unique than you would expect in Transformers. I know you're not into Glyos anymore, but have you heard about the new figures that Marty Hansen and his son MJ released? I think the molds are sick, and I thought it was nice that a father and son both made their own figures. I have seen the new sculpts they have done for Kabuto Mushi. I'm probably going to take a dip on those when they do something in the color schemes that I want. Because right now the molds are brand new. They've been released in like unpainted green, which is cool, but I want to see them decoed up. There's one in there that absolutely looks very Kamen Rider coded. I am very eager to see how that shakes out. We'll see. We'll see how that goes, though. What are your thoughts on the last 5 episodes of the Wild King series being region locked? It is frustrating because I would love to actually like finish off that story If I can figure out a way of watching them, it'd be a great video to kind of just describe how those episodes went and how the storyline played out. I will let you know. I will let you know. There might be ways. There may be ways. It is frustrating. Like, why would you put the rest of the series worldwide and then like lock the last 5 episodes? Like, you do realize there are some fans enjoying it elsewhere, right? Like, let us in. I want to see. If you could get any character the size of the fandom dubbed Divorce Class Metroplex, what could it be? Ignore price, stability, space issues, cleaning, etc. So, you're asking me to ignore every reason why I wouldn't buy this thing. And even then, I would say I wouldn't buy this thing because, honestly, genuinely, there is no part of me, there's not a single cell in my body that wants one of those oversized monstrosities in my life. So you have to get me to ignore literally every desire I have in my brain to avoid these at all costs. That said, the only one appropriate for such a size for me would be Unicron, because it's the closest we could get to having a scale version of the character. Getting one that size that could transform and still be stable, that's probably practically impossible. The only reason they get away with it with Metroplex is because Metroplex is honestly dirt simple as a transformer. There really isn't anything special about how it transforms or the engineering behind it. So they can get away with that for him, but probably him alone. So yeah, it's not just about stability. It's like you're telling me to ignore the physics at that point, but ignoring literally everything should be Unicron. As a fellow Technobot fan, without counting Cybax and Scourge and Scrounge, however you think a new 6 member similar to Rook and Alpha Bravo, what vehicle would it be? So you are accounting for just about everything like sci-fi vehicle with what they already have. So okay, we got drill tank, super speed car, we have jet, we have like a space fighter, we have a big combat ship. Like we have an independent fighter, and then we have like a capital ship looking bot. And then we have a futuristic motorcycle. That does leave us a lot of potential vehicles they could turn into. It's a matter of like what fits the theme of like the Technobots. You could make it a van, some kind of like scout research van that's like loaded with equipment. You could make it, like we don't have anything like aquatic in the mix there. Like, but it doesn't scream techno to me. So like, my brain would go to somewhere almost along the lines of like some kind of lunar rover looking vehicle, like something that looks like it's made for like all-terrain exploration and still has like a very high-tech look to it. That'd be about the closest I could get to coming up with an idea for like a 6th Technobot. Do you think Cybertron would be part of the Planetary Alliance and have Deca Ranger SPD branch with local Deca base and all? If so, what color should it be? Regular white, orangey color, gray like Cybertron itself? I mean, Deca base stood out pretty boldly and just bright white. I feel like because it is like Deca Ranger, because it is Special Police Deca Ranger, I feel like they would have, the same white base that they always have. Like, I assume that's just like the color of like the police station robot base thing. I'm not sure they would have a planetary branch for Deca Ranger unless they actually recruited Cybertronians, or at the very least giant aliens that could stand up to Cybertronians. I think their problem is Cybertronians come in such huge sizes. I'm not necessarily sure that would count. And also, Cybertron is constantly in a state of war. So it's not like you could settle down and have like police peacekeepers handling like normal crimes. Yeah, I think they would avoid it. I don't think they would be part of the Alliance just because they are always in a war situation. And I'm not sure SPD would be equipped to handle anything beyond like maybe a combiner. Like anything bigger, like if a Trypticon shows up, I don't think there's any robot they could combine into that's going to help. If the Transformers were to get lantern rings, which ring would they receive? This, okay, because there are so many of the rings at this point, I cannot answer this question because you are asking me to create a roster. And that's going to take forever. That said, you are right. I do have a few weird video requests that revolve around like how Transformers would respond to certain Marvel or DC comic situations. I might make a theme week out of just like covering Marvel like comic book based Transformers stuff. So that might be a good choice to go in with that. But for this Q&A, I am going to skip that one. Will the real Nightstick please stand up? All my toys are standing on the shelves. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know how that narrows it down. Did you know that the Bullseye cassette from the Target Laser Optimus Prime can fit in the chest of Kingdom Blaster? My dude. It's Ravage. The Bullseye cassette is just Ravage. He's just a normal cassette from any of the modern cassette bots. Of course it fits into Blaster. Every modern cassette Transformer fits into Blaster. They fit into Soundwave too. They're a universal size. Is there really so many? But this is not the first time someone has brought up that Target Bullseye. Are people genuinely unaware that that's just a repainted Ravage? Does anyone actually think that that's a unique mold for Bullseye? See, without them all sharing the exact body type, what is your favorite look for the main three Seekers? Example, Cybertron, Starscream, Thundercrackers, IDW, Skyward, Earthspark. Okay. Yeah, obviously Starscream would be the Cybertron design. Thundercracker. See, Thundercracker probably would end up being IDW based, simply because, you know, it's my favorite iteration of Thundercracker. I'm honestly hard pressed to figure out variations that actually like really hit or appeal to me and also look different enough from a standard like Starscream design. So honestly, I'm having trouble coming up with something for Skywarp. Like the Earthspark design is fine, but it does just come across as like a thinner version of a Seeker. I could say the same as like for the Cyberverse version. Let's see. I'm dialing back my brain. Like, what other times have we seen Skywarp? I don't know. Like, there's really not a lot of options. It's not as many options as you think. Like, genuinely, like, my favorite look of Skywarp was that little Legends class that he got from San Diego Comic-Con, but that's just the Starscream from Cybertron again. You know, just to move on from this, it's really not my favorite, but it's the only unique one I can think of. I did like the repaint they did in Universe where they repainted him from the Jetstorm Deluxe mold. I did like how he looked in that, even if it's not entirely appropriate for him. What kind of insects besides a mantis would you like to see become new Insecticon? Personally, I'd like to see like a bombardier beetle. So I'm not entirely up on my insects, to be honest with you, to come up with something that's like unique enough from the Insecticons we already have. I guess a wasp or a bee would probably be my main answer there. It does seem like they're missing like a proper flyer, because all of them are capable of flying, but like beetles are like short range flyers. Grasshoppers, again, yeah, they have wings like you see on Kickback, but again, they're more short range. Something that is primarily a flyer, I think, would be good to have. So there you go into your wasp range. Would Optimus Prime be the progenitor or ancestor to most, if not all, Cybertronian Titans due to his original form being a Titan? So his original form, Battlestar Optimus Prime, or actually just Star Convoy, though I will still say this, Battlestar Optimus Prime would have been a way better name for the Titan. It's only a Titan class because that's where they sold it as a toy. The original G1 Star Convoy, fictionally, was a very large robot. That's mostly because the fiction in Transformers was gearing toward much larger robots as the primary heroes than they had in the past. Basically, you were getting to the point where, like, Micromasters were human size, and they were big enough to be cities for Micromasters. So you had to get that scaling in. No, I mean, I love the idea. I love the idea of, like, Star Optimus Prime not just being Optimus Prime in his strongest form, but like him reclaiming his divinity with the help of the Zodiac and returning to being the 13th Prime. That makes a lot of thematic sense to me. But I don't necessarily see that as, like, he is the progenitor of Titans, because we know of all of the 13, he vanished. He's not like the other 12 that have, like, a genealogy, like, they are the source of, like, such and such style of Transformer. Like, he just kind of went away. So fictionally, he never really could have been, like, the progenitor of a Titan. Ruin, yeah, and honestly, just, yeah, I don't think it works. I don't think it quite works, though. The fact that there is no 13th Prime for the Titans themselves does raise a question of, like, where did the Titans originate? Ruination. Should it be a repaint of Age of the Primes Bruticus with its modern engineering, arms, legs, and fixed configuration, or should it be Combiner War Bruticus repaint? So we already did the Combiner War Bruticus as Ruination, and that's fine. It's a good variation of that design. So if you want your Ruination, you can already go get it. Age of the Primes Bruticus, I really do think, I don't think, here's the thing. It should not be a repaint, because the versions of those toys, you gotta think the RID Decepticons actually were far more accurate to how the toys looked than the original animation models from G1, which is what these toys are going to be based on. So I would have them all with toy accurate heads. Little differences, little changes, just enough of a variation to where it comes across as a different design. Maybe chest designs too, because the chest designs are going to be very different from toy to cartoon. I would give them variations, but I would ultimately reuse the Age of the Primes Bruticus, and Hasbro's basically confirmed that's what's going to happen. Answer one of these two questions. So, how have I been this month? We're going to skip that one. We're going to skip that one. We will answer, will you do reviews of other G1 combiners? So I did the Technobots because it's my favorite combiner team. To be honest with you, it's the only combiner team I have 100% complete. I mean, I've got, like, a reissue of Devastator. I could review that, but because it's the reissue, there's no point to going one by one on it. And, obviously, like, the plastic quality is not what it was in 1985, so it's not accurate even to, like, the original. The closest I get beyond that, I do have an Abominus and I have a Menasor. Neither one of them have all the individual weapons, though. So I'm not going to be doing reviews of anything that isn't complete. I need to be able to demonstrate the entirety of the toy. So for now, no. Just because it's not available to me, and I'm not really interested in going after it. Let's see. As Magnetar, what has been your favorite streams and/or streaming moments you've done? Jeez, that's a good question. God, it's a good question. Man, it's a lot to think back on. We are at month 9 of Magnetar's existence, which is wild to me. I'm trying to think back. There are so many, like, big moments there. I mean, the most fun I've had in the streams, I think, was Donkey Kong Bonanza, because the chat was way into that, and I absolutely loved the game myself. So those were a lot of fun to do. I'd say those are probably the favorite streams I did. As far as like streaming moments, geez, that is hard to say. There's been a lot. There's been a lot. I can't narrow that down that quickly. I wish I was there for the debut in real time, but since joining in early 2025, I've had a good time chatting, getting to know Mag, or you in and out of character streams. I'm excited to see what comes next for your character and story. I can't wait for you guys to see the story. I really can't. There's just so much work that has to go into making it happen. And I'm on a limited budget these days, so it's very, very difficult to find the opportunity to get it out there. You don't like Ryuki? No, I do not. I don't know what it is. Just character story just never gripped me in any way. It's like I gave it like 10 episodes. Like that's a fifth of the series. And I just by the end of 10 episodes, I didn't care. I think part of it just comes down to I don't like the aesthetic of the show. I might be one of the few people who doesn't like the Ryuki design. Okay, so this might be awkward. For the first time ever, in the middle of recording one of these monthly Q&As, my internet blipped. And unfortunately, I don't know how this is going to shuffle out. I think all the questions are in the same order, but just in case I miss anybody, I apologize. So, totally normal UK was next. Do you have any Holy Grails left to collect? I mean, there's always going to be a Holy Grail that replaces the Holy Grail I just got. At the moment, I would love to have a G1 Death Saurus, because I've managed to get a Star Saber. I've managed to get Victory Leo. I've got I have Overlord now. And I could potentially at some point get a Death Saurus to add Star Saber's Nemesis to that Japanese G1 collection. But even beyond that, there's always going to be like grails to collect. I still want a Muteki Shogun from Kaku Ranger. That would be the Shogun Megazord for American Power Ranger fans. I want the original version with the white arm and the die-cast parts and the accurate look. That's very high up on it. But finding one with all the weapons and not a yellowed arm, very difficult and very expensive. Are there any objectively bad toys that you personally enjoy? For example, I really like R.I.D. Bruticus despite being R.I.D. Bruticus. I think you skipped over my question when I commented last month. I do apologize. Sometimes YouTube doesn't show me all the comments because it's just weird how YouTube loads this stuff in. And also sometimes I go like a little bit too quick trying to get through everything, especially if it's later in the video and I'm just getting exhausted. But I do apologize for that. As far as like objectively bad toys that I personally enjoy. I mean, I think I was nicer to Energon Star Wing Saber than I am most Plastic Addict victims. I fully admitted, like, it's not a great toy, but I love the look and I love the function of it. But independently on its own, it ain't that great. It suffers a lot for its combining ability. But yeah, like I'm trying to think, because I know if I like really sat and thought about it, that there would absolutely be toys that a lot of the fandom just considers really bad that I'm like, why? This is actually kind of fun. I feel like a few Blitzwings fall into that category, unfortunately. The latest one in particular. But yeah, like offhand, I can't really think of like, okay, this is like my guilty pleasure Transformer no one else likes. That's another like potential video, but that one I would have to like really sit and think hard on. In a previous Q&A, I said my favorite Kamen belt driver was the O's one, but when it comes to wanting the toys of the belts, is the O's driver a good one to start off? So right now it's a good place. If you can get yourself like the complete selection 1.5 version that has all of the noises, then yeah, it's a brilliant toy. I'm pretty sure they've released it as a super best, and when they released it as a super best, they also re-released all the medals as their own individual packs. Getting it back in the day, you had to get each form's medals individually from like 3 medal packs. Now with the complete selection, I think it's just 2 huge packs of medals that you have to buy. Much simpler, much easier. And then of course, if you're getting the like complete selection, you just get all of them. But yeah, the O's one, especially because like the O medals are obviously small and they did a million of them. So it doesn't matter. You could get one of the Gashapon versions that still has the metal rim but has a different back design. You can get the candy toy ones that also have a different back design and they're all plastic. Doesn't matter. They all read the same to the driver, which means you're going to get the same sound effects and noises. So there's always alternatives for getting the O medals to complete full sets and combos. I would say, yeah, like I would say O's is an easier one to go ahead and pick up. That's a good, it's actually really not a bad starter belt because it's not too bad to invest in. Let's see, not considering the viability possibility of it happening nowadays, what would you think of the Transformers Tokusatsu? Optimus Prime is a guy in a suit and the transformations are done with practical effects. I don't think there's a place for that, honestly. See, it's a question of this, like, not considering the viability possibility. I don't think that meshes. You know, like, it'd be fun to go, like, okay, here's how 2 of my favorite things are combined together to make one thing. But at the same time, that's like saying, like, I really like Three Musketeers candy bars, and I like smoked salmon. Would I combine the 2? No, I would not. I don't think Optimus Prime as a guy in a suit and the transformations with practical effects would work simply because where does the Transformer part come in? At that point, you're just a superhero who looks like Optimus Prime. And I don't know, that just kind of like loses Transformer and confuses Tokusatsu. I think it's a bad mesh. Forgive me this I asked before. What is your opinion of the DX Robo Universe line from Sentai? And like it or hate it, is there one mecha at least you want to see done in the line? So honestly, I haven't looked much into it. So I don't know which ones they've actually done or not. I mean, I can tell you my favorite is like, my favorite of all time for Super Sentai has always been Daiboken. So I would love for them to do that. If I remember right, DX Robo Universe is just this line of like retro. It's almost like the toy line they did during Gokaiger, which was like a bunch of modular transforming mini Megazords, for lack of better terminology. And it's them doing it again, but I think they look objectively worse than they did before, obviously, because they're budgeted. Every toy line is a little bit worse looking than it used to be, just because of inflation, economy, capitalism. But yeah, like any type of Daiboken that they could throw in, I'd be absolutely down for. Between both the Ride Watchers from Zeo and the Ranger Keys from Gokaiger, which do you think Bandai refuses to let die the most? So I do think the Ranger Keys have basically died out. Oh, guess what? There aren't going to be any more Ranger Keys because there are not going to be any more Rangers. We finally hit the end of that line. It's literally impossible for them to go any farther. So yeah, they would probably end up with more Zeo watches, wouldn't they? Because the Zeo watches just make like good independent toys on their sound makers on their own, and like anytime, it's like the same with Gaia Memories. Like anytime they can just continue making things and it still works in the belt because all the electronics are internal to the gimmick toy, you're golden. You're just gonna get things forever, right? They could have done it with lock seeds too, but like I think they ran out of viable fruit. Also, new terminology unlocked: viable fruit. Why do you think we don't get smaller versions of massive characters? Something similar to how we get core class Dinobots. It would be neat and nice on my wallet. I have been a proponent for this for a while. I remember really liking the Cyberverse line that came out during Prime and Dark of the Moon, because it gave like kids a very budget friendly way of collecting the entire range of characters from the movie, and there's different size classes. And I really wish they had expanded upon that. I would love to get like Legion scale, like normal Autobot cars, like your Prowl, your Jazz, your Sideswipe, etc. I would love to have gotten the Commander class versions, the original Commander, not what we have now, which would be like Optimus, Megatron, Starscream, like your big heavy hitters and big characters, and then expand upon that. You know, the main line is focused on the cartoon, but you have like Jetfire as just a normal deluxe thrown in, and it's a weird scale for the rest of the line that it got roped into, but comparatively, you put him in the Cyberverse line, he fits in scale-wise perfectly. And that gives you room to have like Metroplex, Trypticon, etc., and Scorponok, etc., as Voyager class toys. And I would love that. I would absolutely love that. But the only reason why we don't get smaller versions of that is just because the small versions just don't seem to do well anymore. Like once Core Class bottomed out, I think Hasbro basically just gave up on doing like mini versions of all these characters. So we're never going to get that likes. But now that said, it would not surprise me. It would not surprise me if we didn't get like leader class Fort Max. We do know there was a leaked listing for a leader class Fort Max that we presume is IDW comic book based or Marvel comic based, where he wasn't nearly as big. And they could, if that worked out, they could absolutely do like a Scorponok at that size as well. So you just be like, you know, like that large-ish Voyager, like small leader level, like, you know, the size I'm talking about, which I think is now viable. I think we are actually going to get that, and if it works out, great. If there was a Transformer Christmas special akin to the Christmas Carol, do you think it would be who do you think would be Scrooge and the Ghost? Obviously, it's Ratchet as Scrooge. You wouldn't put Scourge as Scrooge? Ebenezer Scourge? It's right there. Ebenezer Scourge is right there. You have to do it. You have to do it as Scourge, right? I don't know who the ghosts would be. I don't know who you would make the ghosts. You can't make it Starscream. Starscream is the only ghost in Transformers, but you would never get him to agree to be any of these. You might get him to be the Ghost of Christmas Future because it just lets him be a jerk to everybody. You might get that. You'll excuse me if I sound like I have a frog in my throat every now and then. The consequence of only having soda in order to do this is it's gunking me up. Next time I will make sure in advance that there's cold water in the house before I attempt this. Do you think you'd ever do another series rewrite like Beast Machines or shows like RID 2015, War for Cybertron Siege, etc.? I think you do an excellent job. So I kind of got pigeonholed into attempting to do a rewrite of Kamen Rider Decade, akin to what we did with Super Megaforce. I could potentially do that with another series. I think the one that was on the docket last I checked was Transformers Energon. I consistently describe that show as forgetting it had a plot halfway through and having a lot of potential that they squandered in like the first 10 episodes. So it would definitely be somewhere along those lines of Transformers Energon would be definitely next to figure out how that would work out. And there'd be a lot there. There would be a lot to account for there. Question, aka my apology to TJ for last month's Q&A. What's a theme that has never been done before in a Kamen Rider show that you think has a lot of untapped potential? Personally, I'd like to see a Kamen Rider series themed around either art or cinema, use special effects, costuming, makeup, etc. I feel like those ideas have a gold mine's worth of potentially increasing storylines and topics you can tackle with them. Happiest of Thanksgivings, UTJ. So sorry about causing you a stress back during the October Q&A. I'll be honest, I don't even remember what you stressed me out about. Like, it's been a month. I've done a lot of videos. I probably forgot by the time the video was over. So just to be completely honest with you, as far as a theme for a Kamen Rider series, we haven't done like art or cinema. Like, cinema's a fun idea, but you'd have to do the same thing you did with Saber, which would be to create a whole bunch of things that sound like other things, but technically aren't. And that would be a little bit trickier because you couldn't get, like, it'd be hard to get close enough to be like identified as like, oh, well, that's a classic movie, because they are far more strict about those kind of things. They are a lot more watchdog than, say, like classic books. You're not going to get like the trademark holders of Hansel and Gretel down on your back. Keep in mind, a lot of the books those were based on, yeah, they're public domain, so they don't have to pay for it. They didn't have to pay royalty on anything. That would be your trick with doing it with cinema. I'm trying to think of like what would be expansive enough and still give you like a fun gimmicky toy that you can mess with. Because it's got to be something relatable to kids. I try to approach this like as practically as possible. Like, I really like Kamen Rider hasn't done the key thing yet that Gokaiger did. And it's been plenty of time since Gokaiger. I think you could get away with Kamen Rider doing key gimmicks, because there's a lot of like symbolism to keys that you didn't really explore in Gokaiger because it's Sentai. Everything was kept simple. Kamen Rider, you might be able to explore things like that. So yeah, and then like you could have Kamen Riders based off of things that need to be unlocked, like keys and like a lock, like lock and chain, or you know, like even, you know, like ones like you could base a Kamen Rider design off of like a fortress or a treasure chest, things like that. Things that would make sense for it to be key based. I don't know. I like the idea. I just like keys in general. I think enough time has passed since Gokaiger that you could get away with like mixing and matching that. Let's see. How do you think Age of the Prime would handle Nexus Prime as a Voyager class? That's the most difficult thing. The only thing I could think of would be right now to heavily based on his timeline appearance, or replace one of the arms with a new skeleton combiner like Grand Galvatron. Combiner elbow becomes a waist ab crunch. So couldn't think of a way to incorporate the Enigma combination in just what Star Convoy did to the Zodiac. So the truth be told is most of the artifacts that we are getting with the Primes are literally just an accessory that he holds on to or plugs into the chest. Don't try to over analyze that. You're not going to get it. I think your best bet with Nexus Prime is to basically make him a weaponizer style character, similar to what you're doing with Amalgamus, where instead of popping off and being able to rearrange it in like a very Diaclone reboot style, instead the arms and legs would just have simple alt modes. You know, they just have like you lower the foot down to create the nose cone of a jet, and the wings fold down from the sides of the leg. There you go. You have a simple jet, but it's still, you know, capable of like combining and transforming into like whatever his proper vehicle mode is. Or maybe he doesn't have a proper vehicle mode. Maybe the torso transforms into some vehicle like a ground tank, and then you have just two parts that turn into cars, two parts that turn into jets, or whatever. Just very simply done, so it still works. Yeah, I think that's what's going to have to be done. I think you're just going to get 5 very simple components that are weaponizer style to combine together. That's my bet right now. Okay, the Schedule of Conflicts fan would like to know. So there's 2 of you now. Is there any news on Campaign 2 yet? I've been stalking Gob on Blue Sky and haven't seen anything yet outside of the really cool artwork you shared of the Season 1 cast. So right now, Campaign 2 is still on indefinite hold because we are waiting to see how Gob's situation shakes out. He's been public about this, so I can go ahead and let you know. He had to move recently. The new place only has Wi-Fi. It does not have wired internet, and you really cannot VTube stream on wireless. You can't really stream on wireless at all unless you're like right next to the modem and getting incredibly good service. So unfortunately, right now we are kind of locked until he can figure out his internet situation. We're not really able to do a campaign 2, much less, God himself can't even stream right now. If you're stalking him on Blue Sky or just waiting on his Twitch channel, if he starts streaming himself again, then you can start looking forward to campaign 2. But he's got to figure that out first. Do you still collect third-party stuff in conjunction with the in-house releases, like the one blockies that have been releasing for Sentai and Kamen Rider? I got all those ones except for the Taja Dorches. So, honestly, because you now have to import those, I have avoided the Kamen Rider blockies. Much as I like them and much as I like that they did O's, I'm just not going to be able to afford to get them out of China. Simple as that. Like, it's just absurdly expensive to get things from overseas right now in America. I will say I did get the blockies Scyther kit, and I'm going to get the Cerule Edge as well. I guess I like my sword arm boys. So yeah, there are some stuff of like the official third party that I do go out of my way for. But very little. It has to be very specific stuff. Do you think we'll get the rest of the Gamer Edition figs mainly from Cybertron games sooner or later? PS, especially ones that never got released first time around. I'll be honest with you, I think the reception to those was so mid that Hasbro may have double checked and questioned whether or not this was the right direction to go in. None of the leakings that we've seen so far for Studio Series in 2026 actually names anything that sounds Gamer Edition. I think that just has to do with how poorly received a lot of those were. Barricade, for instance, was very poorly received. I thought the figure was okay at best. I didn't like the Bumblebee that came out. I'm not big on like the Ratchet that came out. Ratchet and Ironhide both shelf warmed forever until they hit clearance. The only ones that, and like a lot of people had issue with the Megatron, like the knees on the Megatron didn't even work without modification. I really think the only one that came out really good was the Optimus Prime. I think everything after that was mid at best, and that's not a good look when you're trying to get an entire subclass of Transformer to be accepted in the marketplace. In order to get those toys to work, they had to knock it out of the park, and unfortunately, they did not. So, yeah. I'm not sure we're going to see any of the others. I'll be honest with you. I'd be very surprised if we saw any others. Who is your favorite Transformers Arachnid name or beast mode? That definitely go down to Black Arachnia. I think in Beast Wars, I feel like Black Arachnia from Beast Wars would be labeled and heralded as the best character from that series because of her complexity of character, because of the character arc she told throughout 3 seasons. I think in any other situation, she would be the best character, but she's sharing a season with Dinobot, and that immediately gives her an uphill battle. I feel like she gets overlooked a lot as a result of that. So yeah, it'd be Black Arachnia. Though I also really liked, mentioned it here before, I really liked Earthspark's take on Tarantulas as well. Favorites character in the Skybound universe? Oh, who has been... God. Is it the Optimus Prime? Is it actually Optimus Prime? Now, Thundercracker's on his way to being a good boy. Maybe. I'm still like, maybe not on him based on how they're writing him. I'm not quite sure what direction they're going to go. I'm like 50-50 on him. The rest of it, like, I really feel like I might be like Optimus Prime because he's the most Optimus Prime-y Optimus Prime we have gotten in a long time. Like, he genuinely feels like an inspiring leader who genuinely cares. Like, and that's been missing from so many Optimus Primes lately. So it might actually be the Prime. Like, I'm thinking on it now, like thinking back to the story that we've just gotten through. It might be Optimus himself. That's a rarity for me. We'll sit back and see what they do with Thundercracker. It might amend that. What is your favorite Transformer figure to transform? And what do you like about the transformation? And why is it your favorite? So I have a few of these. They're toys I talk about a lot. I really, really like Titan's Return Top Spin for its transformation. Just because like the torso transformation works so well. That toy itself has a really good feel to it. So it just like it feels bigger than it is. That's the weird way to describe it. It's the same size as all the other deluxes in Titan's Return, but it feels bigger for some reason. I can't explain why, it just does. And it feels good to transform. Like, I like the tricks that it does for its size. It's a really fascinating toy to me. So that one's a really good one to talk about when it comes to it's like Transformers I like to transform in general. I've talked about the Rise of the Beast core series, not core class, core series. Air Razor a lot. That one's a great one to transform too. I love the wings coming from the legs of the robot mode. Gives her a really clean look in the robot mode. She is fun to transform as well. I don't know. Like, there's just a lot. There's a lot that I just like pick up from time to time and go because I just like how they work. Let's see. Here is a question for you regarding one of your favorite Transformers. Apparently, there's going to be an 86 Rodimus that will be interested with this trailer, maybe leader class. So remembering the backlash, so integrated, I think you were going for. So remembering the backlash people had about Kingdom Rodimus being a commander thanks to the trailer, that makes me want to ask, do you think Rodimus trailer should be a separate piece or integrated into the figure itself somehow? So if you're going for a show accurate Rodimus Prime, you can't. You literally cannot make him integrated with the trailer and make him accurate to how he looks in the show. You take a look at what Titanium had to do in order to integrate his trailer into his robot mode. That Rodimus Prime is a beast. Like, he's just huge, blocky, and bulky. And that's typically not what you get from Rodimus Prime. I don't think there is any way to actually incorporate the trailer and still make him look like he's supposed to look. So it's going to be a separate trailer, and it wouldn't be surprising if it was another commander class. They just have to make sure the trailer does something different because it just feels blah. I think a lot of people had issues with the Kingdom Rodimus because sculpt and proportions in the robot mode were not great. Again, he's a little bit thicker than he should be. He doesn't really strike the right chord design-wise for Rodimus Prime. If you do the 86 one, he's got to be screen accurate. That's going to be the trick. Yeah, and he just has to be fun enough on his own to ignore the fact that he comes with a big hollow box. That's what we did with 86 Optimus. Okay, IDW and Beast Wars Uprising. Who do you think did the darker and edgier better? And they're both IDW. I do think like the darkest parts of Beast Wars Up. Oh wait, actually no. You're thinking about Beast Wars Uprising. I'm thinking of The Gathering. Okay, scratch that. I will be honest with you. I've never really read too much into Beast Wars Uprising, so I can't really give an answer on that one. Though I do think there are some very dark storylines to IDW 2005. So I don't think that would be discounted. But I can't give you a fair answer, unfortunately. Since Marvel and DC are seemingly doing crossovers again with their Deadpool and Batman comic and teased new amalgam character Logo, combination of Lobo and Wolverine. If Marvel and DC decide to full revisit of amalgam comics, what other new DC Marvel amalgam character would you want to see combined? Dead Asmodian, you're asking me to consider two of the largest rosters of characters of all time? and throw them together to come up with story. That's difficult. That is exceptionally difficult. Mm, mm, uh, uh, uh. Jeez, yeah, I have a hard time with that one. I have a very hard time with that one. I mean, there's combinations I can think up. Like you could do Abomination and Doomsday together to just make the ultimate powerhouse of a villain, and then all Doomsday's crystals become like radioactive gamma crystals. But that's meh, you know. Like I'm not even terribly big on that. You're talking about like Spider-Man 2099 in there. Your better bet there would be Spider-Man 2099 and Batman Beyond. So you would do like a Beyond Spider as a, or like Spider Beyond or whatever you want to call the mixed up name. Just as like a super futuristic version and like techno version of Spider-Man. I think that would be the only one I could think of off the top of my head that I think that would fit and that would work really, really well. I'm gonna go with the answer on that one, because anything else is gonna be like, well, why did they put Carnage in with Joker? Well, they kind of did that. Seemingly, their ideologies are very, very different from each other. That also seeing a clown-based symbiote might give everyone nightmares. What obscure Autobot Decepticon do you wish was on Bumblebee or Starscream's level of popularity? I mean, then you're going into like my personal favorites, my boys, like Trailbreaker, Reflector, Rapido, a lot of the ones that I've talked about ad nauseum. The only one that I would really put in this slot are characters like Nightbeat, who I think could offer something really fresh and unique in Transformer storytelling, being that he's a detective. So he handles things in a situation other than shoot and blast a lot till big thing go boom. I think you have a lot of potential there that does not get tapped. So yeah, Nightbeat needs a return in general. We have not gotten a Nightbeat toy in forever. So that absolutely needs to be fixed. What's your favorite Chase figure out of the three smaller classes in the Blockies Transformer line so far? Galaxy Shine Defender versions. Jeez. I'll admit I'm not a big fan. Like it's gonna be an easy answer. It's like the Defender versions Optimus Prime comes with the wings from Cybertron Optimus. There's a no-brainer answer. Anyone who's watched my channel for like longer than 2 weeks will probably know. If you throw Cybertron Optimus stuff in there, 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna go that one. That one. Except for the Siege toy. We don't talk about the Siege toy. But yeah, it would be that one. Like most of the Chase stuff in like Galaxy is just metallic versions that don't really do much for me, or like that weird blue Optimus Prime from Stormbringer. I didn't like that one. Honestly, like I can't remember them all offhand to remember which ones the Chases even are. So that Optimus from Defender is literally the only one that's coming to my head. Do you think Hasbro will eventually make a Majin Zarak figure from the Beast Wars second movie figure in the future? That's a really iffy one. Majin Zarak is such an obscure villain character. I genuinely do not know how you get away with it. Like that's up there with like Star Giant. As just like barely anyone in the greater fandom knows who this character is. There's people who know that Optimus Primal showed up in the Beast Wars second movie, you know, so you can see like a new double convoy situation. But honestly, I don't think we're ever, that one might be too obscure. That one just might be too obscure. I have added too obscure to toy as a potential video. I'm a one figure per character guy. Recently I got Legacy Sandstorm and Studio Series A6 Springer to replace the Throwing 30 version. For you, is this an upgrade or a downgrade? For me, I always want to have like an accurate cast presented at the end of the day. I do think the I think the Thrilling 30 version of Sandstorm and Springer are fun toys, but I ultimately am going to prefer them to be accurate to how I remember them in the cartoon. So, yeah, for me, that would be an upgrade as far as just like display in a collection. But as far as playability, I will admit I like the Thrilling 30 mold better than I do the modern molds. Do you think Broadside could be reworked into a Titan scale headmaster like Fort Max, a body that triple changes between a jet ahead while the aircraft character turns into the Titan body? I mean, if you're going to create Broadside in like a brand new series or fiction, then yeah, like you could get away with something like that, especially now that we have like Titan class toys that are like the size that Broadside is in the cartoon, which might be another reason why we have such a Titan size now, because Broadside's day may eventually come. Yeah, we're talking let's see. So you're not talking about a triple changer between a jet and an aircraft carrier and a robot. You're basically talking about a duocon. It sounds like you're talking about something that splits because like the aircraft carrier turns into the Titan body. Um, but you also have some of the triple changes between a jet and a head to get both of those in there. Yeah, you're talking more along the lines of a duocon, or at the very least, like Energon Omega Supreme, where like his head turned into like his pilot. You know, what you're really talking here is the Astro Megazord. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. That's what you're talking here. I mean, that's one way to do it. I still don't think that's a great solution for getting a Broadside out there, but I could absolutely imagine it being redone that way for a future series if they ever wanted to actually get people invested in a Broadside. How do you think we'll get the modern Insecticon molds in their Diaclone colors, preferably a multi-pack? That'd probably be it. I don't imagine them doing it one at a time. The only other way to do it one at a time would be do what they did with the deluxe Insecticons, which is to piecemeal them across multi-packs. And I don't think that would go over very well. I think your bet is to just do like Pulse exclusive, maybe Pulse and Big Bad exclusive. Just throw 3 red repaints of those toys into a box and sell them. Frankly, the Diaclone Insecticons are red and green. They should have released them as a holiday pack this month. If we're being honest here, that would have been the play. Is there any random combiner team member that you have special affinity for themselves? Like you get the toy this character, even though the rest never came with them. So for me, that goes back to the Technobots, and that goes into the two that I grew up with the most. And I talked about this a lot. Like Lightspeed was one of my favorite toys as a little kid. But I really like Afterburner. Like really like the overall design and how Afterburner transforms. It's exceptionally unique for a G1 Transformer. Yeah, if they did just like a normal, like if they did Afterburner as an independent Transformer, I would grab him, just sight on scene, regardless of whether they had other combiners or not. Like if it was an animated situation and only one member of the team got a toy like Swindle did, yeah, it'd be Afterburner. Do you think we'll get Skybound RC anytime soon, or a Shredhead? We'll absolutely get a Shredhead at some point. They are marketing the character way too hard in the comic books not to eventually sell a toy of him. That's just a matter of waiting on that. Skybound RC, on the other hand, that goes back into me always wanting some kind of modernization of that design that would actually let you have like an RC that seemingly had like normal proportions, wasn't super scrawny, wasn't a shell former. I would love for that to be a thing too. But I feel like Skybound has other priorities. Like we're getting the Optimus Prime, for instance, overpriced as it is. But no, Shredhead is absolutely going to happen. If Hasbro started eliminating points of articulation for cost cutting, was the one point that you would be fine with eliminating first? For me, it's wrist swivels. If wrist swivels were already removed, then waist swivel. I prefer a waist swivel over a wrist swivel. And truth is, The majority of Transformers don't have a wrist swivel. It seems to be included only when the design itself allows it to exist. And frankly, on a lot of Transformers I've messed with lately, that's becoming a rarer thing. So I don't think wrist swivel is like one you necessarily like go, okay, leave this on the cutting room floor. I think what would go next is the ankle tilt. I think we would go back to just having like a broad face on the inside of the leg for them to lean on when their legs are splayed open. You know, it wouldn't look as natural, but Transformers managed to stay up on their feet for a long, long time using that style of articulation. So I think, yeah, I think the ankle tilt would be the next one to go. Let's see, between Runamuck, Runabout, a Devastation Ground Soldier, and a Ground Soldier Sergeant, which one looks the best in your opinion? For me, okay, whichever one the yellow one is. I think the Ground Soldier is the blue one, and the Ground Soldier Sergeant is the yellow. I prefer the yellow. Though Runabout is also really, really nice in the black and the red colors. Of course, it's black and red. You're not going to get that wrong. Let's see, keeping to the railway theme, would you think railway Transformers would go down better if there were more American engines like big freight diesels or more iconic steam engines? Raiden being half commuter engines, a couple bullet trains, and one freight diesel was not a good choice, as those often boring aesthetically. I honestly don't think it matters. When it comes to just train toys in the US, like legitimately, they don't sell. Like no matter what you do to them, they do not sell. Like I think big iconic steam engines have a better chance because they are still like a mental image of like a train, even though we haven't used them in forever. But those big those big freight diesels you're talking about are basically just big boxes with windows at the front. I don't see any kid finding any appeal in that, and you need to appeal to kids. And even amongst collectors, like a train mode in general is not one that really makes sense, essentially because what are you going to do with it? Like, it doesn't turn. It's a train. Train don't turn. So you can't really use it for that. You can't really play with it like you do a normal toy. That's the thing. I do think a steam engine would sell better just because of the look, but honestly, unless you're doing a crossover with Thomas the Tank Engine or the Time Train from Back to the Future, I don't think you got a chance of a toy train selling in the US to a kid. So we got 4 deluxe Insecticons. What if they were combiner limbs and there was a 5th that was a chest? What bug mode would you give the theoretical 5th? So we've talked a bunch of Insecticons. I feel like there's going to be an Insecticon on the thumbnail of this video. So the hard part with that is it needs to be something big enough to be the torso amongst all of those deluxe Insecticons without really encroaching on them. And you already have 2 different types of beetles. My first answer would be some kind of beetle, but you've already got a bunch of them accounted for. So I think the only bet I would have there would probably be like a scarab beetle. Not only because you could make it more like a goldish color, so it has like a good look as the torso, but also because you could use the opening wings to create like the actual torso armor and give it like a really cool look. So with that, I don't know. Like I don't want to throw in a 3rd beetle into a team of 5, but really I can't think of any other insect that's large enough to work as that core member. You could do an ant or some kind, just like, I mean, it's a super major. It's just a really big ant. But anything else kind of feels awkward. So that's a hard one. That's a very hard one. But yeah, I would probably either go with a scarab or I would go with either some kind of like giant ant of some kind because we don't have any of those. How to get it into a combiner? That's a Takara engineering thing. I'm just picking the beast. If Full Tilt from Titan's Return or Brunt from Legacy were in the aligned continuity, do you think Megatron clone them as the bases for his Viacon army? Absolutely. Like, one of the flaws of the Viacons is the fact that they are all cars. And yes, there's flying ones, but they are cars with wings. They're barely jets. Let's be honest here. Yeah, if he had like Full Tilt or Brunt, if he had tanks, or armored cars that they transformed into, that would have been a way better choice for his Viacon army. At the very least, clone more than just one standard Viacon. You know, okay, you can still have your cars that are basically your scrawny, like, gun fodder, but you have your heavies. Like, you have Brunt as your heavies in the back, and that's your tank support. And that would have done Megatron way better if they had those. If you played Legends ZA, what was your team for the final battle? Can I remember them off the top of my head? So, we had Feraligatr as my starter Pokemon. We had Scyther as my favorite Pokemon. We had Crocodile as my ace. We had Chestnut, who fills the gaps in my typing, but desperately tried to hold up with the rest of the team. We had Tyrantrum, one of my favorite dragon-type Pokemon. And we had Chandelure, who was like my secret ace. Like, he came in clutch a lot. And it was a shiny Chandelure, no less. Yeah, that ended up being the team. I like that Legends ZA gave me like a bit of otter Pokemon that I don't normally use. Not, you know what I meant. not the literal otter Pokemon, okay? Not Oshawott. But no, it made me choose away from my usuals. It gave me Scyther, so I got to keep that familiarity. But everyone else, I basically had to work with stuff that, I had never caught or trained before. And that made that a much more memorable experience. I feel like I'm going to flack for this, but should Slipstream transform into a different type of fighter jet so we could get a figure of her that isn't a retool of Windblade? You aren't wrong. I'm not going to give you flack for that, because absolutely. I have already stated many times in the past, it's long overdue for the Seekers to find their own identities and separate into their own jet mode styles. And Slipstream is no different. If she could be like a scout jet, similar to like Prime Soundwave, like a drone jet, I think that would fit well. You could still make her very thin and svelte. You could still give her like detailing that kind of matched like the overall Seeker look in robot mode, but you give her this uniqueness, so she isn't just a retool of Windblade, which doesn't really suit her. Yeah, I'm always a proponent of like letting the Seekers be different from each other. Releasing the Scramble City Combiners has a Combiner class bottleneck. If 2027 doesn't have a Titan, though G1 Metropex is past due, I agree, could they release Hotspot, Hunger, and possibly Scattershot? Assuming Predaking will use the Devastator Lyokaiser model. But at present rate, it will take 7 years more of Seacons or any other combiners with Manasor. And with the changing budgets, how will the 2029 team compare to the 2022 team? Honestly, I think at this point, they're just locked into doing the toys at their current budget and style. So if they do have to modify things, all you're going to see is a price increase. You're probably just going to see deluxes go to $30 by 2029. So with that in mind, I think all of them at the end of the day are going to be comparable to each other. You might see a few things lacking from later versions. And honestly, they're not going to be able to get away with some of the things that they're getting away with now. Like, there's no extra bulk on Hunger to build like the framework off of. So you got to figure out how Hunger works and how you work a frame into that combiner team. They'd have to get very, very creative for the likes of him. So there's a lot to consider there. But yeah, you are correct. It's going to take a while to get all of the combiner teams out. I do think some of the more obscure ones are going to get skipped. I think at the very least, this will maintain until the main 5 are out. So uh, once Bruticus is all out, Defensor is going to be your next goal. And then I think it's like 50-50 whether or not we get Abominus and Computron. Obviously, I'm pulling for Computron, but I don't think necessarily a guarantee. Depending on when you release this video, Metroid Prime 4 is going to come out very soon or already be out. So we always do these Q&A videos as close to the first of the month as I can get. So Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, as of this video, is a few days from release. It's not out yet. In either circumstance, I'm curious about your current thoughts on the game. I do like the gameplay that I'm seeing. That seems fun. That seems really engaging. It seems like it's Metroid Prime 4 the way I want Metroid Prime to be. I like the motorcycle. Apparently, that's a little bit more divisive, but I do like it. I think it looks really cool. I think it opens up some new possibilities for Samus. I do not like seeing that there are Federation Force characters mixed in to create more narrative, and I really do not like that one seems to exist for comic relief that is very much unnecessary, and I feel like takes you out of the Metroid experience that you're looking for. Metroid at its finest is you abandoned on a planet having to survive and escape, and it's supposed to be this constant threat of being alone on an alien world just trying to survive it when literally the entire planet is your enemy. When you have other characters there, it takes away from the isolation you're supposed to feel in these games. You know, you play Super Metroid, you know why that game's like holds up even after all these years? It's because of the atmosphere that game creates in its music, in its environments, and just the way that Samus is on her own. I feel like Metroid games that muck with that end up being weaker for it. With like Metroid Dread might be like the only example, and that's just because you had a computer like talking to Samus once in a while, and the few storyline beats that you got were really significant. So there is that. There's that. But you still felt like you were alone on the planet. That's the key to it. I don't know. That gives me a little bit of concern for Prime 4, but I think the gameplay is still going to be the main pull. I think the gameplay is still going to be good, and I'm going to be like leaning on that. What do you think about Hasbro holding off on doing Transmetals due to the painting costs? But Playmates were able to re-release Chrome Dome in the vintage TMNT line. So I always think that Hasbro is just full of it when they talk about Transmetals, and like it's their like, should they or should they not chrome them? I really think that's just an excuse at this point. The reality is the reason you are not seeing Transmetals at this point is because deluxe class toys do not have room in the budget for what Transmetals do. That extra layer of engineering to get that third mode in is not going to be something they can do on such a tight deluxe budget. We've seen what happens when they add in anything to a deluxe, you know? Okay, we need like an ankle tilt, so this character has to have like a ratchet joint in his waist so he can tilt left and right. Oh, well, now that takes us above the deluxe budget. We need to make him a Voyager. And that's what it would be. Rat Trap, Cheetor, Tarantulas, like Waspinator, if they like really make me happy. All of those would have to be Voyagers in order to get those extra parts into the toy. And no one's going to be willing to pay, the $42 Voyager price point, or even the $35 Voyager price point for what really does just look like a deluxe in the box. They really could just use metallic paint or even metallic plastics to replicate the look of the Transmetals. It's the extra cost of engineering those extra modes Transmetals are known for where you start having the problem with releasing modern ones. And I wish they would just say that instead of just blaming the chrome. What should a Tokusatsu fan expect from the usual Metrocon dealer room? So honestly, not a whole lot. There's usually one booth there that has a decent amount of tokusatsu stuff, but ultimately it is an anime convention. And to be frank, the dealer room is largely artist alley stuff. The artist alley is significantly smaller than the dealer space, but MetroCon does not stop artist alley people from renting dealer room tables once the artist alley fills up, meaning that half or more half or more is just artist alley stuff. It's t-shirts and art prints and acrylic pieces and just, that kind of stuff. Tokusatsu wise, there is not a whole lot. I would not go to MetroCon simply for the tokusatsu experience. Florida has Ranger Stop. So if you're going to want a tokusatsu experience from a convention and you're going to Florida for it, wait for Ranger Stop. There's plenty of toku there. A lot of people use it as con for Kamen Rider as well. Though honestly, right now with like tokusatsu kind of taking off a little bit in the US between Ultraman continuing to succeed, Zets being released in English, various animes coming to the West, like Red Ranger in Another World, Go Go Loser Ranger, that one where he falls in love with the villainess and I can never remember the name of. And now Tojima wants to be a Kamen Rider. You have a ton of toku anime out there right now that people are getting into. And on top of the fact that toku is just very freely available now in the West. So it might be increased next year, but I wouldn't bank on it. Again, if you really are going to a dealer room for tokusatsu and you're coming to Florida, wait for Ranger Stop. Do you think that we could get some Studio Series repaints homaging the 2007 toy line, such as Night Watch Prime? We've done, I want to say I've done a whole video on this. And yeah, like the weird thing about Studio Series toys is that so many of them are one and done. They might reissue the popular ones here and there, but for the most part, once they do a Studio Series toy, they're done with it. And that's crazy because Hasbro is usually exceptionally happy to repaint a toy and get a million uses out of it. So when they only do like one version of Dark of the Moon Soundwave and they do not do the Sound Blaster version that had a prototype but never came out, that seems like a discouraging result. That seems like a wasted opportunity. And like you said, like I really like the Night Watch deco. I think they'd look great on one of the modern figures. It's a missed opportunity. It really is. I don't know if there would be enough demand for it, but it is upsetting that they don't at least try. Like I would love for that to just be like a capsule line they do at some point for either like the way Target just rolled out the Gamer Edition versions of a bunch of like current molds, or the way that Walmart does like a yearly capsule line. I feel like there's room for it. You just need to try. Since the Bayverse and the Friday the 13th reboot are apparently connected. What? Do you think Reboot Jason had a chance of finding one of the Bayverse Autobots or Decepticons? So, I've never heard of this in my life. Granted, I don't follow Friday the 13th, but I have never heard of this. I have no idea where you pulled this. And even if this is true, no, there is literally no chance of Jason versus a Transformer. That is absolutely not going to be a thing. That's weird. I don't know where you heard that or how you would have heard that. I have no idea if I don't even know any connection those movies share. Like last I checked, Friday the 13th isn't even a Paramount franchise. Like, yeah, I don't know where you pulled that from, honestly. I've never heard it before. What would Magnetar's transformation catchphrase be? His equivalent of Henshin. I use it sometimes between form changes. It is let's make an impact. Because, hey, that's what all of his transformations are. And that's kind of what he's doing. He's trying to make an impact on Earth by being its hero. So, yeah, that's the transformation catchphrase. Unfortunately, I've just never had an opportunity to use it. Like, there's no, like, animation for, like, what Magnetar looks like in a civilian form. And that's by design, because I haven't figured one out yet. But no, that would be the transformation call. Are there any Transformer fics that you would personally recommend? Nope. I have literally never read one, so I have nothing for you. How would you feel personally if Hasbro decides one day to make Bumblebee a Prime instead of Hot Rod? Personally, Hot Rod in 86 just felt more like an industry plant, and the fact he was designed to be Optimus' successor when B's right there always made me look like Bumble Prime more through the years. So honestly, if we're following G1's sensibility and hierarchy, you got to keep in mind Bumblebee was one of the most popular characters. He was not Prime material. He was not leader material. He was a scout. He was not a frontline fighter. He was not, leadership capable. He was the scout. And to make him anything besides the scout in G1, you would need a lot of character growth and development that he never showed in the cartoon. So no, I don't think you'd ever see Bumblebee in G1 being a Prime. Hot Rod in 86, you are right. It was planted there to be like the cool new hero for kids to buy the toy of. But to say like, oh, well, you could have just used Bumblebee. He's right there. That I feel like is an off statement. That one I feel a little bit off. Like, honestly, your main candidates for Prime from the existing cast, if Prime was going to pass the Matrix as someone familiar, would have been like Jazz. Someone who is still a younger hero, but is still very leadership capable, still very capable in a fight, and is already Optimus Prime's right hand. Like, depending on the fiction you go by, he's supposed to be Optimus Prime's second in command, which would have him first in line for the Matrix. And that might have been a possibility if he hadn't been eaten by Unicron. At the very least, stuck on Moonbase 2 at the time. Or Moonbase 1, rather. I got it right. With Super Sentai being retired, what does that mean going forward? That is a question we have done videos for recently. Super Sentai being retired means it's going on the back burner, but it's such a valuable property to Toei, they're most likely just letting it rest until the demand to see it come back is there. And in that time, they have to retool the formula. Like if and when Super Sentai comes back, they really need to figure out how to approach it differently so that it is fresh and modern. And they have to get rid of a lot of the usual tropes. So Super Sentai just felt so formulaic after such a long time. They reused a lot of the plots that previous Sentais used for episodes of the week. They make individual Rangers feel inconsequential because either the Red Ranger is the main star or the individual Rangers get like one episode every 10 episodes and then just kind of go back into the background. The individual Zords are meaningless because they go straight to the Megazord. The Megazord never has any challenge in the fight because, it's usually just, oh, I got one clean shot in. Let's do the finisher now. The weapons are inconsequential because they never finish off the enemy. The enemy blows up, they get brought back as a giant. You summon the Zords, you combine the Zords. The Zords have a very easy battle to beat the giant. And it's just the same thing over and over. It's lather, rinse, repeat, lather, rinse, repeat. Like, you've been doing it for 50 years. You got to do something different. Please do something different. It does mean the Metal Heroes is back, though it seems like Project Red is going to be a catch-all for whatever Tokus franchise they want to bring back at the time. But for now, we're bringing back Metal Hero with a new Space Sheriff series, Gavon Infinity. Should be fun, though. Be a definite change-up. I'm very curious to see how they make it different from Kamen Rider, because they're both armored heroes, so you got to make them look very distinct. Which Enterprise do you prefer, D or E? D. Absolutely D. It might just be because I saw a lot more of the Enterprise D because it's, the main ship in Next Generation. I don't know, like the E always looked a little bit too slick. Like, there's something about E that I don't personally believe is the flagship. How should Hasbro release Leader 1, Swindle, Windshear, and Ramjet? Should they do a Pulse exclusive multi-pack? We are talking about mini cons that are needed for existing Armada-based characters. You know, and throw a Sparkplug in there too while you're at it. They seem to really like throwing them in with the Power Links repaints that they've been doing. And I wouldn't be surprised if that is something we saw relatively soon with like Red Alert in his orange color scheme. But that's a very tricky spot. And I do think at some point, yeah, just like release a multi-pack of minicons. They know there's a demand for it, but it's just such a hard size for them to figure out how to personally put up with. Between G1, Hound, Trailbreaker, and Mirage, who do you think would win on Prank War? I mean, Hound easily. Like, easily Hound, because, like, Mirage and, like, Trailbreaker is the force field. There's only so much you can do. Mirage as, like... Oh, sorry, I lost a train of thought here. Mirage going invisible. There's not a whole lot you could do there either. So yeah, like that one gets a little bit weird. Yeah, but for the most part, I think Hound wins that because there's just too many possibilities for the holograms. What is your favorite sitcom? It is a sci-fi sitcom out of the UK called Red Dwarf. Hysterical show, comes back whenever it wants because the cast loves doing it and always want to do more. And yeah, it's a very weird microcosm of the 90s, and I absolutely love that show. I'm not a big sitcom person, you know, like I didn't like Friends, I didn't like Seinfeld, you know, like I'm not a sitcom watcher, honestly. Like, to get me to go back to like when I was a kid and I was watching like Family Matters, because every 90s kid knew who Urkel was. Yeah, but it'd be Red Dwarf. Go look up clips on YouTube of Red Dwarf. It's magic. What was your favorite meal growing up? Um, that's tricky. We had a lot that we did that I really liked. I don't know. I wasn't like a complex kid. Like I really liked a burger and fry, and I still like a burger and fry. I'm trying to think of like what we did specifically. Um, my dad used to grill a lot. The grilled stuff was always really good. Um, we did take out pizza where like I like a sausage pizza, and then like after turtles became a thing, I wanted pepperoni instead. Pepperoni still my go-to. I'm trying to think if there's anything different. Like, weirdly enough, like there's those days where like my brain craves the old cafeteria like rectangular pepperoni pizza that we used to get, or like they like every other week the cafeteria would do like a chicken nugget day where like the mashed potatoes were actually really good, and there was like a chicken gravy that went with it, and it was amazing. I don't know what it was, but like I looked forward to those days of the lunch every time that was due. See, would the Autobots and Decepticons actually put aside the war for one day if they learn about Christmas from humans, or Megatron did it just to get off Santa's naughty list? Um, that's interesting. I don't think necessarily the Decepticons would actually put aside the war for a day, because they don't have the empathy for humans or their celebrations. You got to keep in mind, like, these are 80 like mustache twirling villain type characters. They care not. Like, what you're basing this on is like the famous story of like the Ally and the Axis armies like laying down their guns for Christmas and actually like just getting along like human beings. before the 26th hits and they go back to just war. But that's because both sides have human empathy and respect for like each other, like their own personal cultures. No one in there wanted to fight because they all wanted, because they all wish they were celebrating Christmas instead. So that's exactly what they did. They lay down their weapons and they have Christmas together. Um, that wouldn't happen for Autobots and Decepticons because they do not share ideologies or they do not share connections like that. That's specifically on the Decepticon side. I feel like Megatron would use it as a ruse to try to get one over on the Autobots. I feel like that would be it. About that red Bumblebee toy, why not have it be a G1 version of Stinger from to the TF4? You might have something there. You might have something there. Huh. You know what, Stampy? That's not a bad call in the least. Hang on. Recasting color variants added to the list. Do I still own any TMNT toys that you had as a kid? I don't think I do. I think a lot of them got lost in various moves or they got so busted and broken over the years that they just got thrown out. I look at my like retro shelf. Not seeing anyone that looks necessarily familiar. I'm sure there's still a few in like a forgotten toy bin in the storage room that I could probably pull out. Like there's probably a Triceraton or like a wind up Leonardo back there that never got thrown away. But like none that I specifically have out and mess with. Like I don't think I have any of those left. Why are most sequel series seemingly doomed in Transformers? Think Beast Machines to Beast Wars, Energon to Armada, RID 2015 to Prime, etc. See, you say that, like there are obviously follow-ups that actually worked out. Cybertron is objectively a better follow-up than Energon. So you do have things like that. But that's also because that wasn't originally a follow-up to Energon. So let's see here. What else can we think of? I think it just falls down to every time they do one of those shifts, Hasbro wants a completely different direction for what they're going with because they're trying to appeal to different audiences or trying to break things up so things turn out differently or like just to give it a different vibe on the toy shelf. But that leads to them doing frankly silly things sometimes and coming up with designs and characters and stories that don't necessarily work out, which is a shame, but it happens. Yeah, I'm not quite sure why Transformers can't quite get a sequel right. It's weird, isn't it? Let's see, what do you think of G.I. Joe collaboratives had worked better if they did what the Combined Wars Viper did? Make original characters from G.I. Joe and Cobra vehicles. Absolutely. The need to force G1 Transformer characters into G.I. Joe vehicles is one of the reasons why that toy line did not turn out great. Personally, I just think from an engineering standpoint, that toy line was exceptionally disappointing. But more so when I've talked about this a lot. If they had just allowed their Megatron to just be black instead of gray, they could have worked that HISS tank into a far, far nicer looking Megatron design than what they turned out with. But that need to cram G1 Megatron into an all black vehicle, that doomed it. That completely doomed that toy. But yeah, like I do think like if they just done unique characters, that would have helped a lot. Really, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. It's all down to those toys were poorly engineered and they needed to make a better attempt on it. Simple as that. See, question. How well do you think a Transformers movie that was treated with the same irony as the Minecraft movie be received? Just name dropping random parts of the Transformers lore for fan service and winking the audience going, recognize that? You'd have to make it more of a comedy movie, and I don't think that works as well. Transformers lore is so like involved that I don't think you can just like wink to the audience the way you can with Minecraft. Um, I don't think it would necessarily work just because the tone would be too far off. The Minecraft movie is this silly little adventure that can be like written as a comedy, whereas like Transformers stories typically deal with war, civil war no less. So it's a little bit tighter than that. Yeah, I don't think that would necessarily work. Any old yet classic games you love that wish you had a remaster on a modern console? I'm guessing your answer would be Chrono Trigger or Final Fantasy IX, but that would be too easy. Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy VI. You would be correct in that. And I will also give you anything from the Mega Man X franchise, because I would also love to see those redone. We got Maverick Hunter X on the PlayStation Portable, but then they ended it there. So if I'm going beyond those, and I'm thinking like, okay, what classic game would I love to see remastered on a modern console? Jeez, that's such an open thing. Jeez, my mind is just like racing through a million video games I have played in my lifetime, trying to come up with the one. I'm like, this, this one needs a remake. Um, if I go with one of my other like obsessive answers, like one of the games I really vibe with, it will never get a modern remaster. It will never get a modern remaster, but one of my favorite games of all time is on the N64, and it's called Mischief Makers. I think I've talked about it on these Q&As before. I feel it's overly Japanese, and it's what would have happened if the Mario 2 style of gameplay, where you're grabbing items and throwing them, evolved and became like the main way Mario played. It's a lot of using that pick up and throw mechanic and everything you can do with said mechanic in order to create a platform game. It's a lot of fun. It's a very weird game, but it's a lot of fun. And I'm still annoyed that it's not on Nintendo Online. Let's see. How can I get Hasbro to reissue Earthrise Leader Class Double Dealer? So I'm not sure that's one you even need to have reissued. I can't remember how easily it was to obtain back at the time, but also I know that toy is very divisive, and a lot of people were not especially happy with how it turned out. So when the toys got that negative appeal to it, then you're looking at something that would be a very hard sell for a reissue. You would have to convince Hasbro that there is demand for one of the most random and disliked leader class toys from that era enough to actually release as a reissue. But then again, they're reissuing Siege Prowl of all things, so you never know at this point. Honestly, I don't think Double Dealer, I think because it wasn't that well received as a toy, I'm not sure Double Dealer is even that expensive to get on the aftermarket, honestly. I could be wrong. What if they made a Magnus repaint? Okay, I gotta write down this idea too. That one's gonna take a lot of research, but that would be a lot of fascinating information to have. Let's see. What if they made Magnus repaint that was Optimus and had Optimus get in the armor instead of him dying in the 86 movie? Well, see, then you have Hot Rod. You don't. Here's the hard part: is that the story of the 86 movie is a chosen one narrative. Like you could have just released, Magnus in the powered convoy colors and just called it like, okay, well, this is just a suit we made for Optimus Prime to like, uh, heal his body, etc. And was like, just to like save his life. We have this suit of armor for him to wear now, and you could probably have gotten away with that. He would have been the lead hero of the story. I will tell you this, Magnus probably wouldn't have died on junk because Optimus would have been a far better fighter and had a better handle of how to deal with said situation. And he would have known that the Matrix wasn't going to open just because Galvatron had him cornered. Yeah, that's a menacing moment, but it's nothing that he hadn't faced with Megatron in the past. It wasn't a darkest hour moment. It would have been It would have been like, I don't know, like just a usual Tuesday for Optimus Prime. So I mean, it's an intriguing idea. You'd have to rework a lot of the movie for it, but I mean, at the very least, Optimus would have survived. I don't know how people would respond to the new design. Let's see. Why does Hasbro get vehicle license for Bayverse but not G1 or RID 2001? Usually because the vintage designs are a little bit harder to get a hold of, especially because a lot of times those licenses are being held by other toy companies, in particular, Hot Wheels and Matchbox. Between those two, tend to have the lion's share of like exclusive licenses on like retro vehicles. So it's a very difficult thing to get those licenses in the first place. But really, the reason is they don't have to. On Movieverse toys, you see the cars on the big screen, and they are those models of cars, exactly. But in the cartoon, in the original like G1 cartoon, they're only kind of those cars, you know? Like, they don't exactly look like they do in the real world. So you can fudge the design of a brand new toy to still be cartoon accurate, but not actually infringe on an automobile license. And that's kind of how they work it. They don't need to be completely accurate when it comes to the G1 stuff. But because we see the real car in real time in the movies, they have to be accurate for those. So that's why they get the license for Studio Series, not G1. Do you think there's a chance that Transformers Prime Dreadwing could be worthy of the Matrix of Leadership? He's a very noble for a Decepticon. It takes more than nobility. Keep in mind, there is more reason for Dreadwing to be a Decepticon than just me evil. It's difference in ideology. You know, like, yes, there's a noble warrior in there, but there is still a reason why he was a Decepticon in the first place. Otherwise, he would have been an Autobot, and yeah, maybe he would have been worthy of the Matrix at some point. A Decepticon inadvertently becoming Optimus or Rodimus Prime's successor is a very interesting concept, and it's a shame Hasbro hasn't covered it. You could work something in there like that as like a Decepticon redemption story, but as I said, that would be tricky. That would be very, very tricky. And there are other reasons for the character being a Decepticon no matter what, and that might disqualify them from the Matrix itself. Let's see. I think my question got removed last month, assuming it was being too long. But here's a shortened version. FYI, I'm not here to start heated arguments for this. So just my observation within the fandom. Glide, you're absolutely going to start an argument with this. I'm going to start adding Skids and Mudflap to the questions that I'm not going to answer. So here's the thing. I don't care what you buy. I am personally against Skids and Mudflap as characters and concepts, but you do you. I really don't care what you're buying. I don't care what the toy is or what they did in the show. I personally don't think those characters should ever see the light of day again because of how they were designed and how they were written. You do voluntarily open yourself up to a level of criticism if you acknowledge how poorly written they are, if you actually acknowledge the stereotypes they represent, and still decide that you want to support that with money. You can acknowledge it, but all you're doing when you say that is, it's okay for them to be racist caricatures as long as I get to complete my toy shelf. I think that goes beyond just calling someone racist or ignorant because they support those characters, but but to actually like acknowledge that those are very bad characters and their existence is a very bad thing, and still want to financially support that, you are valuing something very petty and silly over the things you really should be valuing. And I think that says a lot more about a person than you let on. There's my stance on Skids and Mudflap. You know, if you think completing your toy shelf is more important than like taking a stand against what those characters represent, you might want to look in a mirror from time to time. Are there any retro carded Decepticons you want to see? That's a hard one, isn't it? Because like the retro carded ones have been exclusively like mini bots, and there is not a lot. There's not a lot in the Decepticon department that is like, yeah, I want to see that done up as like one of the original toys. I think mostly because you couldn't even get like there's not a lot of Decepticons that even fit that really. This isn't even cold anymore. I'm not sure how much it's helping at all now. So we did see retro carded. We saw retro boxed headmasters, so that was a thing. So we have already seen those. In general, if I'm ignoring what we have right now as a basis, and I'm thinking like, okay, well, what modern toys would I like to see in a retro packaging? Then you're talking about just about any of them. I think the new Seeker molds, I think those would not only be good candidates for not only like having that retro packaging because those are so familiar, but I think that would also work for the minor retools that they would get for being like show accurate, for being like toy accurate. Because since those new molds for Studio Series are going to be so cartoon accurate, there is plenty of room in there to remold the chest and remold the head to look more like the original toy than there has been in the past. So they are very good candidates, I feel, for a retro carded or retro boxed release. What are the odds we'll see a remake or remaster of both War for Cybertron or Fall of Cybertron? I'll be honest with you, I think slim to none at this point. You have to keep in mind that while we Transformer fans hold those games in high regard because they were some of the very rare good games that we got in this franchise, truth is, they weren't top sellers. You know, War for Cybertron sold just well enough to justify Fall of Cybertron's existence. And that's it. They did not light the video game world on fire. They didn't sell 10 million copies each. You know, they were like mild successes at best. So there's really no foreseeable demand for those to be remastered or honestly even re-released. I think it's ridiculous they're not available on Steam anymore. That seems really silly. But for the most part, I think the odds are exceptionally low. At this point, the money and effort it would take to remaster those and remake them, you just put that budget into making a different and good Transformer video game instead. And I'm like, not that these aren't good, but you know, you get my point. It should be better. There's better ways of using that. You are given the chance to jumpstart toy development by sending a modern Transformer back in time to 1984 Hasbro. However, it must be from one of the budget kids toy lines like Cyberworld, Earthspark, etc. It comes with any internal documentation modern Hasbro would have for its development. What toy do you send? So we do keep in mind, there is more to this than just, oh, hey, here's how toys can be engineered. You should do this. There are technical and physical limitations to what they can do with those toys. They can't necessarily make them the way they do now back then, even if you give them a blueprint and an example. But if I'm sending them back a toy from one of the kid toy lines, Cyberworld, Earthspark, etc., and go like, here you go. This is the style of engineering that you can strive for. If I'm thinking about that, thoughts start going to things like, I really liked Hammerbite from Cyberverse. I really, really like that toy. I think that one wouldn't be a uh, bad one to send. Cyberverse Grimlock as well. That one could have also been good. I'm focusing on like deluxes here. Does still count because they are budgeted and they are officially from the kids line. Because I'm trying to go through like this like cacophony of toys from all of those lines. You're like, who was the really clever ones? What were like the really smartly engineered ones that would make a past designer go, oh, you can do that? Huh. I'm trying to think because like Earthspark, who was it in Earthspark that I really, really thought was really well done? I mean, Nightshade. Nightshade is actually really well engineered for its size and for its price point. I might go with that one. I might go with him. Okay, we have a story there, so that's no question there. Should Hot Rod and Rodimus Prime have more distinct looks from each other? With all the looks the character has gone through, I always feel weird. The only difference from the main version is just one's a bigger version of the other. There are design differences between the two. I will admit they are few and far between. Um, but for the most part, I'm not. I'm kind of in agreement. Um, and I find that I'm in agreement because I have looked at certain things. I've looked at like the Aldi toys that I just did on the news roundup. At first glance, I can't think to myself if that is Hot Rod or Rodimus Prime I'm looking at. Like they definitely are not distinct enough from each other. I will agree with you on that. Um, I do think Rodimus should be a little bit bulkier. Basically, like I should like we talked about the Kingdom mold earlier. Part of the reason why people didn't like the Kingdom mold is because it's just too bulky to look like 86 Rodimus. But that bulk, I think, is kind of what he needs to look distinct from Hot Rod. I think he should look like a more powerful robot rather than just, the scrawny body he ended up being. He's just like a little bit thicker. Question: how's your day? Interesting. Um, I will admit, a little bit of stress from family drama, but that's just how families work. Um, had a good day otherwise. Got a chance to make my mom happy. That was good. Um, good day on stream. We had fun in Katamari. Let's see. Had a good amount of time to hang out with my girlfriend in Power Wash Simulator. She had a rough day, so I like having the chance to make that better for her. Yeah, and tried out the new Fortnite season with the usual Brain Cell crew. Yeah, like overall, just kind of it's a rough start to the day, but otherwise, yeah, not bad, not bad. Who would you choose as the next Optimus Prime going forward? Alan Tudyk or Chris Hemsworth? I do like Alan Tudyk overall as the voice of Optimus Prime. Chris Hemsworth, I do think sounds more like the traditional Optimus that I would expect. He hits the baritone I like better. Alan is that like post-war dad Optimus Prime that works for Earthspark, but I don't necessarily think would work for a more traditional Transformer story. There, Chris Hemsworth, I think, would be a better fit. The problem with Chris Hemsworth is I think he's too expensive to use for anything else besides any kind of movies. And we already know Transformers 2 ain't happening. So I think we've heard the last of that Prime. What do you think Prime would do after the war? Stay on Earth and help people? I kind of think that would be the same. Honestly, Prime is on Earth because the war came to Earth and he wants to get it away from said planet to protect it. If the war is over, I don't think Optimus has reason to stay on Earth. I think Autobots would still have a presence there. You would have a Metroplex or an Autobot city as a liaison point. You would have Ultra Magnus or someone of that stature in charge of said city. But I think Optimus's place after the war would be to return to Cybertron and get all of his house in order, to try and get the planet back to where it was before the war started ravaging the whole thing. Just like the restructuring, the rebuilding, and making sure that they maintain the peace on the home front and don't spill out into any more alien worlds. I think that's where Optimus Prime lies after the war. I've now added after the war roles to the potential video list. Do not be surprised if you see some of them this week. Given the rest of the deluxe Insecticons each have a counterpart with the original 3 Insecticons, would you be down for a purple, black, and yellow repaint retool of Venom to complete that set? So, potentially, yeah. Potentially, yeah. You'd have to make sure it has a distinct identity and look more like the traditional Insecticons with the translucent chest. But you could do that. I wouldn't mind it. And yes, you hate the automatic AI answers too. No, there is no way to turn them off. They're stuck there no matter what. And it sucks, and I hate it. Do you think Transformers look better with eyes or visors? And would you want to make a Transformers video debate on the topic? So potentially, yeah. Like we could do a debate video on like a better look for a Transformer. But honestly, this depends on a lot. I think it really depends on the character more than anything, because like sometimes it does add personality. Jazz looking like he's wearing a pair of shades just works personality wise. On rare occasion, like RID 2015, Jazz had actual eyes and it looked weird. So it's not really a matter of do I think they look better with visors or eyes. It's more like, does it work for the character? You know, like I am one of those who kind of likes Devastator with a visor better than eyes because I think he looks better that way. I think he looks more ferocious or menacing with the visor. And considering a lot of the other combiners in the Decepticons, well, I guess not. Because Bruticus has a visor, Menasor has eyes. Okay, and yeah, Predaking has a visor. Visors are a thing amongst Decepticon combiners. Never mind me. Never mind my answers here. But yeah, I really think that's one of those, like, it really depends on the rest of the character's design. I like them both. Do you think they should bring out more animal-based Autobots? Not Maximals, but bots like the Dinobots, Night Stalker, Stripes. I don't mind them being, like, exclusive to the Predacons into the Decepticons, because most of those animals that would be ferocious do seem like they would fit in better on the bad guy side. Like, you could, but like outside of like just doing the Beast Wars cast, like what's a benign set of animals that would make sense for transforming robots to turn into for advantage over the war? I'm not going to expect you to turn into a bunny rabbit character. So hey, Gregory, yeah, that's how you get hidden from this channel, is when you go after and attack somebody on my watch. No, bad Gregory, go to timeout forever. That's just incredibly rude, dude. Like, don't come attacking like that. Has Gregory been answered? If Gregory posted something and I haven't answered it yet, I'm deleting it. But no, yeah, I think the Autobots do have like animals amongst their ranks. They do have like Catilla, not Catilla. They have Chainclaw. They have Chainclaw. Catilla is the one I'm thinking of. Like, there's a saber-tooth tiger one too. It's like the animal pretenders. You've got that. Geez, that really does like run the gambit of like beasts that are not Perceptor cassettes. It is lacking. You are correct, but it's hard pressed for me to find animals that would make sense for them to transform into and still have some kind of like edge over the Decepticons in a war that wouldn't just make them feel more like offshoot Predacons. I could probably come up with something, but again, that would take a little bit more thought than we got for this video. What's your favorite full clear plastic toy you actually like? Why are you like this? Edgar, why are you like this? Ugh. So the truth is there are actually very, very few toys that are completely translucent, because translucent plastic has been known very, very well for a very long time to not handle stress of joints and articulation. So no matter what, there's always going to be some solid plastic to a toy. Drake Warden down here suggested Beast Wars Quick Strike, who, yeah, does have a lot of translucent plastic, but not the bug legs, not the snake tail, not the gears that make up the internals of the robot. There's different things. There's it's not 100%. But the closest to all clear plastic of a toy that I actually really like, it's one that I reviewed for Toy-Sember last year. It is Flamestone from the GoBots. It's the one that looks like a ruby. I think those bots in general are really, really nice, and the translucent works for them to create the Jewel Lords. I have a lot of affinity for that toy. Grew up with one, paid a lot to get one as an adult, but yeah, it's one that means a lot to me. So that one's always been a favorite. And yes, it is mostly clear plastic. And we are finishing up with Neck Punch here. Let's make sure. Neck Punch, did you give me a good one? Did you give me a good one? If Hasbro did new versions of toy-only Beast Wars characters using existing molds, which meant sacrificing robot mode accuracy, would you be up for that, or is it the robot mode as important as the Beast? For me, I absolutely feel like the robot mode is just as important as the Beast. In fact, I feel like that's even more important, if I'm being honest here. It would be hard pressed to even find characters that would work with. Like you mentioned, like Tigatron into Wolfang. You would only get away with that if you design it the way that the original intended design for Beast Wars Prowl was supposed to look, with a Cheetor style head and the wolf head on the chest and the body layout the way Cheetors worked. That'd be the only way you could make something like that work, as basically make it like a concept series release, but for a Beast Wars character. That would be the only way that would work out. But you think, like, how would you do Polar Claw? Like, did you really repaint Rhinox into Polar Claw? Okay, a white rhino is definitely a thing. But yeah, like it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. I understand wanting to get more Beast Wars characters out there, but you really do need to focus those robot modes, because that's also just, I think for Beast Wars especially, the Beast and the robot are equally important to each other. Like a Transformer, I can get away with like switching up the alt mode as long as it's still a car, but there's very little you can do to switch up the Beast mode of a Beast Wars character and still make it feel like the right character. And that goes for the robot mode as well. And that's going to do it for us today. So if you made it all the way to the end of this video, congratulations. You are a champion. You win absolutely nothing except the right to leave a comment giving me a question for next month, as long as you follow the rules that are pinned at the top of the comment section. But as always, thank you very much for listening to a very long-winded video. And as usual, I will see you next time. Hello everyone, I am Astral Agent Magnetar, a Tokusatsu VTuber, and I am streaming 4 times a week over on Twitch, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday afternoons, and a special late night one on late Friday/early Saturday. So come watch, come hang out, and let's make an impact together.